Just grab those real quick. I don't know if you guys wanted to, by any chance, put the podcast on the LS Discord. That's up to you.
It's up to Crimzon, because
I don't really care. So, up to Dutch, really.
don't try and fade this round. I'm not gonna be even here for the whole thing. I wonder if they have Super Mario Bros. On the browser.
Super Mario Brothel Brothers?
Dude, that fuck hell yes. Super Mario Bros.
Oh.
Dude, I'm Dutch. You fucking know that I would do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Wow, you can't. Okay, that's retarded. You
What?
can't sprint and jump at the same time.
Mm. What's up, Jack? All right. Okay. What's up, Landon? All right. So, Dutch, Crimzon, both here, yeah. Crimzon.
Potentially. I'm not sure if I'm here or not.
Oh, okay. That's always great. But yeah, for the people who are already here, welcome to our first podcast I've ever done on this channel, if you will.
Oh, stop trying to edit my. Sorry, I'm just playing Super Mario. I'm just playing Super Mario Bros, man.
I really appreciate the attention you're giving to that. Thanks.
No problem, man. You know you gotta respect Super Mario Bros.
Yeah. But yeah. So today we're doing the first podcast ever. But we're gonna be, or for at least for this channel, and we're gonna be discussing a couple of major topics, if you will, and the opinions of people who are in this group, if you will, in regards to some of the topics we're going to go over, some of the pros and cons of Milsim and StarSim, which you're kind of like signing up for. The second thing we're going to go over is something inspired by a podcast Remy recently did with Bad Frag. And then thirdly, going over communities / governments in Arma, if you will. And then lastly, LS and what it has done for our community and how it's been involved in the shaping of things is going forward, because I know it's at least a major part of what we do in Rancor Battalion and other units. So, but yeah, once again, welcoming Dutch and Crimzon. Welcome. And I'm excited to hear both of your inputs on this and what's going on. So, but yeah. So first, I guess we'll start off with the pros and cons of Star Sim, if you will. Milsim versus Star Sim. I'll pass that off to Crimzon, if you will, in terms of, I guess, viewing Milsim being more on the much more serious end of the spectrum and Star Sim being a little bit looser. I'll pass it off to you, Crimzon. What's your like opinions on that, if you will?
I mean, so mine is a bit different than most people's.
Hmm.
I was not a fan of Milsim in the slightest before, and in fact, person games in general. I'm a more RPG, Age of Empires esque single player kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then 3 years ago, I saw a YouTube video, or maybe it's 4 years ago now, on YouTube of somebody doing swap, and I was just like, oh, that looks pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
But the compositions are kind of terrible.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I could do better than that. And so
Mm-hmm.
I did eventually.
Yeah.
Mm.
When I set out to go do it. Dutch, what's your thoughts?
Came from. All right, so here's my like full story. Is that I essentially came from. This is very cringy. Actually, I came from. So I had a very funny fascination with the military. So I decided, hey, the most realistic way I can equivalent this is by joining Gary's Mod Military RP. Yeah, so that's where I came from. That story pretty much made me want to off myself. Like after a couple of years, then I heard about Arma,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, oh shit, yeah, like this is something I could actually get behind.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and so I got behind it. You know, I started playing it. Took me 2 weeks to figure out how to mod it. Joined the milsim. Regretted joining that milsim, but hey, here we are. Like now, still joining the actual Marines, by the way.
Yep, yep. I remember. I think we've chatted about that a little bit. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, fair enough. To each their own with that. But yeah, personally, for myself, where I come from in this, for me, I come from. Let me make sure that's the right camera. But for me, I came from Arma, or sorry, not Arma. I came from Milsim back in the day, and essentially with that, I was involved in a 100% serious, 100% of the time Milsim unit, and that was my origins. So I leaned towards the Milsim side of the spectrum, and then eventually I was in that for about 7 years, and then I came from that into Star Sim eventually on the PC. But I totally get where you come from. I feel like you're slightly in the mid ground, Dutch, between with what Crimzon mentioned, with what I mentioned. I was on the serious, he was on the silly, and then you were in the in between. Um, but yeah, so I mean, I think we each have our things in there. But I guess talking about like some of the pros and cons, I think I would say, for instance, like Star Sim gives us all um, a banner, if you will, to work under, where we have a lot of creative license, if you will, if that makes sense. Yeah, where we have like a lot of creative license and such, and we can define our units how we want to define them. For instance, myself being from Rancor Battalion, Dutch or Dutch, you are in which unit presently? I know it's not your unit, but
I'm pressing buttons. Ah, panic. I currently am in the 115th Air Assault Battalion.
okay. And then Crimzon being, if I'm not mistaken, the commanding officer of the 74th.
Currently, yes.
Yep.
I'm
So,
the only NCO in this channel.
yeah, it sucks to suck, boop. Um,
You
but
will not be any day older. Come on.
but yeah, so I think Starsim gives a lot more creative license because you have the ability to determine what you want to be and what pieces you want to be. if you will, which can definitely stir the pot with active duty military personnel or prior service military personnel. You bump into a lot of ideas and be like, oh, you can't do this part of that without doing the other. I think definitely, personally, for us, there's a perfect balance. From my own experience, there's definitely a perfect balance that exists that allows you to have Star Sim and Milsim coexist in a really equal balance. I mean, like, what's your take on that, Crimson? Like, what elements of 74th would you say are Milsim, if you will?
So, um, for me, I don't really think there's I don't really think it's fair to think of the Milsim and Starsim being two separate ends of a spectrum,
Mm-hmm.
but something rather than a spectrum or like a linear line, it's more like a spectrum, where it takes all kinds, and um, you've got some of those really heavily RP ones where it's all about making you feel like Star Wars and that you're taking part in the whole galactic struggle and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got those other ones who are just like, well, we like Star Wars, but really we're just using this as a reskin of our Milsim unit. And
Actually, it's
we
act.
what?
I was making a terrible joke. Continue.
Okay.
Real smooth.
But they're both still under the Milsim umbrella, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not necessarily that one is better than the other or one is more serious than the other. It's more just that it's kind of like the avenue from which from which your unit or your gameplay has chosen, or the lens your unit has chosen to view your experience, I guess.
Yeah, I'd say
And
that's pretty fair.
and because of that, I'm not sure I'm really qualified to say what is Milsim and what is not Milsim in the 74th, because to me, who was an outsider of the Milsim experience until basically 2 years ago when I was initially recruited into the 74th, um, this is my only experience with
Mm-hmm.
Milsim and Starsim.
Yeah.
So to me, it's all Milsim.
Mm-hmm. I get you. I mean, yeah, I'd say that's fair. I mean, like I feel like I may have put that I may have said the question in a wrong light. I guess. I wouldn't say they're like at opposite ends of the spectrum, but it's more of um, a lot of my experience coming from a Milsim environment, especially one that was 100% serious 100% of the time, was anyone who wasn't us or at the same level of you go as hard, we looked down upon to a certain extent because you weren't going there. And a lot of the times, having that lens to be able to look through, and I'm not speaking for the present, like present Rancor, but having that lens to look through where you're looking at other units when they're taking just little pieces and using just little pieces, it seems like they're trying to be Milsim. It's a very strange thing to be able to look back through that lens and be like, oh, that's weird. But you have a lot of looking through that lens. You can see like there are communities that exist that have, for instance, Rancor is 25% serious, 75% fun. I know there are some other Starsim teams that I've run into that are more serious and more Milsim in their structure and design. That lends them to being like what you said, or what Dutch had mentioned briefly, being a Milsim unit looking for another skin. I believe you said that specifically, but he had brought it up. But yeah, I would say like if you're to go into what the question actually is, pros and cons of Milsim versus Starsim. Starsim, its pros would definitely be like being able to be creative and have choice, and also the open-ended side of lore where we don't have the answers for the question gives you the ability to have creative freedom. Whereas with Milsim, it's a lot more rigid and linear. So that's a pro of Milsim is structure, if you will, in that regard. Um, but yeah, I would say that's probably, at least in my opinion, how that pans out. What do you got over there, Dutch?
My mouse to be unmuted. That's what I have. I can actually speak kind of interesting because the entire time I've played Arma, it's been in Milsims. Like I come from, I feel like I'm dead in the middle ground to be honest.
Mhm.
Because on one side, because of the variety of games I play and like the background in gaming started out in Halo. It's very, I have a very strong belief of like if you're here to play a certain thing, you're here to do it like a certain thing. To me, it sounds kind of weird saying it, but when you play Star Sim, as it's colloquially known, you play is like to play as a trooper in the Grand Army of the Republic. So
Mhm.
that means you take the real life elements of like, hey, if you're in the fucking like army or the like 21st Nova Corps or whatever you want to be, or like open-end units, act like it. So you borrow from those features. This isn't uh like when it comes to milsims, I can definitely see why a lot of people come there. At the same time, like you do need to be reminded, like because I know some people take it way too far, and the fact is like you will address me by rank,
Mhm.
and you will salute me because I am an officer, and I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, chill out.
Mhm.
7-year-old game where 13-year-olds play it. Like I don't mind. It's like nobody really is really here. Like we're all here to have fun and emulate it, you know. But other than that, it's like we're not here to like completely emulate the art like sort of army system. Because
Mhm.
if we were to do that, well, it'd be boring as shit. Because then we wouldn't have combat at all.
Yeah.
Uh, but I do think like a balance needs to be struck between the two. Otherwise, you just end up with the whole sort of like, hey, I have nothing to do right now, or it's just like Battlefront 2, but larger.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really fair point. I think using that actually to segue into our next topic, which is red flags in units, which was brought up as well as another topic in Remy's podcast.
I
Um,
have a really good one for this.
which, yeah, so the funny thing is that that unit that I was involved in the 100% serious 100% of the time, 1000% had exactly what you're talking about. But that's what I knew I was signing up for at the time. I was originally enlisting in the United States Marine Corps, so I said, "This is what I want. I want you to use this to prepare for the military." And it gave me what I wanted. Unfortunately, I had life circumstances pop up that prevented me from going forward with that. But it it was very interesting to say the least. But it was I totally understand where those units come from. Now there are definitely people out there who exist and want that, not because they're trying to emulate. For instance, in our case, it was the Marine Corps, but they are doing it for a power trip. They're yes sir, I'd like all that blah 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 out of game. And like a point that was brought up with Remy's podcast that they made was it's definitely acceptable for RP purposes in like when you're in the server, in the game, in the fight. If you're RPing, totally fine. When you're out of that is when it should drop. And I think that over time, having been to both ends of the spectrum, 100% serious to zero, um, I could definitely understand that perspective being the one that would lean towards it. That would definitely be like, for instance, a red flag. But yeah, like what are for you, Dutch? What are some red flags that go off in units for you, or that
I
says
have
like get the fuck out is a red
a,
flag?
considering I don't join units that much anymore, I help a lot with setting up units in the sort of case like just because of the time.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of red flags. For starters, too many special forces detachments. Like you're running a fucking infantry unit, all of a sudden you have arc, recon, bark, airborne, jump school, and it's just like you have three infantrymen. Like for every infantryman you have an entire like special ops brigade. That's
Yeah,
one of them.
yeah,
Uh,
that's normally a
or
pretty good one. Yeah.
I would
I
actually
like
offer a quick counterpoint on that. For
yeah
me, it's too much too soon.
Well, I think that's what he was saying with Dutch with what Dutch was mentioning. He was saying you have three infantrymen, three, and then you have 20 special forces detachments, and that's
yeah
it.
that
There's too many detachments and not enough general infantry.
yeah
Oh, okay, then yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
Because,
yeah,
like in like take large units 501st, it's like let's see, they have a special forces detachment for their special forces detachment, which I find funny as shit. Uh, but it works. And, you know, that's because they have their thing. Uh, like they have the numbers to sustain it, and they're not stupid about it. Or take Rancor. It's like you guys have, I don't know what, like 3 platoons and 2 special forces detachments because of the fact that like you know generally how to handle it. And when I say platoons, I don't mean like 5 people each acting as one squad because everyone else is inactive. Uh, because I've also seen that. That's one of the other things I'm gonna. One of the other major things is when starting, and this is purely when you're starting a unit, is when you make yourself marshal commander and you're in command of 2 troops.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's a
that
big
like
red flag
that
for me, yeah.
right there
Yep.
is how to guarantee uh your unit to die. In fact, this like a friend had actually like this was like I believe a year ago. I'm sorry about this. A friend literally came along and asked me to help for his unit. He wasn't in charge of it. This other dude was. This other dude was like, okay, so I hear you're here to help your unit, so give me your feedback. I'm like, all right, well, for starters, you're a fucking lieutenant and you only have 3 members, so like demote yourself. And he's like, oh, is that really necessary? I'm like, well, not really, but like, if you want the unit to grow, like you gotta have to set a good example. And then basically just evolved into it's like, you know what? We never asked you to come here. How fucking dare you? I'm
Yeah.
like,
Not being able to take criticism, yeah. That's
yeah, that's
also a red flag in and of itself.
and then the final thing I'm gonna say is being disillusioned with yourself, saying that you have 3 full squads when you really have one. Now, what
Yeah.
I mean by this is a full squad is 5 to 10 people, depending on the systems you use. It's like I know some people use 5, I know some people use 10, I know some people who use 15. It doesn't matter. But a full squad is a squad that has your like your core members, then 2 or 3 reserves, and the squad is always full. It
Mhm.
is not a skeleton squad. It is not a sort of, you know, squad which is barely there. It needs to be genuinely active.
Yeah.
Yeah, paper units.
Yeah, yeah, like exactly what Nightwolf said. Yeah, um, but yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. Yeah, having the red flags of the unit commander, automatically you have 5 people in the unit, and then being a battalion commander or something like that. You have to start from a realistic point because if you're so obsessed with your rank and focusing on that, you're not focusing on the right things. And it's not focusing on the unit and being
You
disillusioned with yourself, and yeah, and thinking, oh, I have all these people on paper. How many people are going to be here to actively participate in your community? But moving over to Crimzon, what are some of your red flags that you've got?
Um, the first one that comes to mind is a unit leader or commander or whatnot that has this sort of attitude, which is do as I say, not as I do.
Hmm.
Um, like for example,
I could pop one up for you if you want. Like, for example, of a unit commander who will tell you to run laps, but never do that himself. For example, be like, oh
um,
yeah, go do this,
I
but
was thinking I was thinking more like he follows the rule. He tells people to follow the rules, but doesn't follow the rules himself
oh
or
yeah,
herself.
yeah,
I
fair,
mean,
yeah,
let's be gender inclusive here.
yeah,
But
we
like
often
for
are told
example,
this is true.
if a unit commander says or makes it part of the unit rules, don't use personal arsenal,
uh-huh.
don't abuse, or don't use if you have
Don't use
access
Stamina
to
stamina.
mods, yeah, stuff like that.
or whatnot,
Hmm.
and then like they use or abuse the Zeus interface to give themselves ammo in the middle of like a base defense or something,
Hmm.
and like or they have like as part of their slots automatically Zeus in their slot, assigned slot.
Hmm.
I mean that to me is a huge red flag because they are not holding themselves to the same standard as the rest of the unit,
Yep.
which to me is essential that you hold yourself to the same standard.
Yep.
If not
Otherwise,
higher, right?
or higher even.
Yep. Yep. I mean, yeah, I mean, I've definitely seen that where people are, they will abuse or they will sit down and say, you can't do this, and then they do the exact same thing they said you cannot do. It's exactly what you were saying. Um,
Uh,
and I've
I
also,
want to make. Oh, sorry. Go
no,
ahead.
no, you're good. Go ahead.
I want to make 2 points. While I see exactly where you guys are coming from, like there is like I can immediately think of a counterexample in the sort of sense that it's very much like hey, don't do this. Not because it's against the rules, but more of the fact like you're not trained in this or you're not experienced into this. And I don't say experience as in you don't have enough hours in game, because once you reach a certain point, you pretty much know how to do anything. But more of the fact like, hey, you need to like know the unit SOP to do this to function properly. Like I could see that. And another thing I quickly wanted to touch on is in-game punishment.
Okay.
I understand if it's 100% roleplay, but if it's not 100% roleplay, there's no reason for it. You know, making them run laps is just a waste of everyone's time.
Mm-hmm.
Don't smack them on the wrist, tell them to not do it again, and if they keep on doing it, take that thing away. It's not that it's not that difficult.
Mm-hmm.
It's something I see a lot. It's like because the practice of making people run around laps is just stupid. Like I understand if it's for a joke or if it's in a 100% RP unit, which it's like, you know, all power to you. But other than that, you're just wasting people's time.
Yeah.
Or if everybody's in on the joke.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
at that point, that's fine. But
Yeah, I mean, I come from a place where, yeah, laps was 100% the thing you would do. And I mean, the main reason it was issued at that time, bear in mind this was a 100% serious unit, that changes based on where you're coming from and what you have in a unit. Um, it the main reason it was issued is because when you do something that you're breaking the rules or whatever, you're wasting everyone else's time. Well, you're wasting everybody else's time. You're not wasting your own. So now I'm going to waste yours, kind of thing. But for me personally, like if I tell you to run laps, I'm running it with you because I'm responsible for you. You're under my command, and your actions directly reflect upon me. So, and the same goes for leading by example. I do not expect you to go start running around in circles if I'm not willing to do it myself. I've definitely been in units before, even well before my time in Arma, or like briefly when I started Arma, where unit commanders and just other unit members were not willing to adhere to the punishments they were willing to give out to others, or not willing to do the things they expected of others. Um, so, I mean, I understand the merits of doing discipline like that. I know a lot of people very much hate that aspect, and they're like, no, you're just wasting my time. Well, you do the same thing when you commit whatever action you're committing. So it's I've sat here and dealt with this, if you will. I dealt with your shenanigans. I dealt with all that stuff. I'm going to waste the exact same amount of time you wasted of everybody else's, because your time is valuable. So is ours. So when the situation arises, I've had that in the past. It's not something we do presently anymore. Um, it's more like, for instance, a corrective counseling for us, and that's how we deal with that. But yeah, no, I understand where you're coming from with that. But on to, I guess, our next point here, um, would be communities and governments in Arma. So organizations that exist within, for instance, StarSim, MilSim, whatever the case may be. Um,
oh, this is not a charged topic at all.
no, no. So a lot of the reason I bring this topic up is I've actually been interested in the concept of bringing something to the table to help new units, and to help units that exist out there and provide a branch of aid without providing restriction to the same extent. In the same way that Legion Studios offers, for instance, the auxiliary mod in the modding aspect of the community, offering something of a similar nature for the growing of your community or your growing of your unit. Because a lot of units out there rise and fall because they don't learn from the mistakes of others, or they don't know these other things exist and they make those mistakes. So on this topic, obviously we have, for instance, Gark as an example, in our community, one that has existed for quite a fair amount of time. And I think Gark's core principles, at this day and age, because they may have been different previously, from what I understand, are more along the lines of now they really would like to help people, and they really want to grow that standard measure of play where they can allow for free and open travel between units, and cooperation between units. I think is what they exist for now. But like, what's your opinions? Your guys' opinion. I'll start with Crimzon, then go on to you, Dutch. Of like communities and governments in StarSim. So, Crimzon.
So, I have many opinions and thoughts and feelings about this. First of all, and most prevalent of all my opinions, is that while it sounds lofty and while it sounds like a good principle, in the end, it feels like a form of self-gratification and self-idolization.
Okay.
Because, I mean, it is a game
Mm-hmm.
where we all just want to have fun. And some, I will admit, some units at different points of their lifetimes are better than others
Mm-hmm.
because of the people which join together and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things which I have noticed that I see with StarSim, that even though this is the only lens that I have to view Milsim through, is that there is such a weird fixation with you can only be part of my unit and no others.
Yeah, I don't know why that is, to be honest.
There is this really weird fixation where I can, like, units have specific rules. You cannot dual StarSim. You can't do this. You can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, we are all here to have fun. And yes, I understand that there are rules to limit drama and whatnot. But the
Mm-hmm.
real question is, why did that drama get there in the first place?
Oh, I can explain that because I was there
Well,
from like
let's avoid being
And
specific, but yeah.
yeah.
and we can go back to the very beginning of StarSim,
Mm-hmm.
where there were these governments and institutions set up,
Mm-hmm.
and these weird
Rules.
possessive things where it's like,
Well, if I can answer one question, if
and
that's all right.
opposition. But yeah,
If I can answer one question, because I know where the dual unity rule actually came from. Because I was here from StarSim in the beginning. Yay. I regret my life choices. Um, the dual unity rule actually came from Garp, in the fact that, you know, you're not allowed to cross units between, like, you're not allowed to join a different Garp unit, right? And that kind of got, and at the time, Garp was pretty much the only active, like, real unit thing. And then when units started splitting up for personal reasons, they kind of interpret, like, at least from what I saw, they kind of interpreted it as, like, oh, hey, you can't join uh, our like other units, and that's where it kind of comes from. It came from that sort of fraction mentality
Mm-hmm.
from when people, because a lot of people copy stuff off the 501st.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the rules, ranks, those are all 501st. Like you could say, like you could say what the hell you want, but like all the base work is done by like those first units.
So,
Uh,
I would.
and I was trying to avoid pointing fingers. That's why I was
Yeah,
trying to.
yeah, Dutch. Good job.
I was
no,
trying
Really
to
good
get
job.
Dutch
no,
answer
no,
out
no,
of
no.
it.
Let
But
me rephrase. I'm not saying that the 501st cause drama. I'm saying that a lot of the blueprints that units get are from the 501st
yeah.
in the sort of sense that like they're the largest, they're arguably the most successful if we do a number count.
Mm.
So a lot of
I
people
mean,
take
just if you
inspiration.
look at their donations that are coming in on their
Yeah,
Patreon per
exactly.
month.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's what I mean. I'm not saying like, oh, 501st started like all the shit. No, 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 no. I'm just saying that uh like people I took inspiration, we'll say that is the nice word. Like took inspiration from it, and that's where it kind of just grew. And like on the whole, like no joining other stars from you, I think it's stupid, honestly. I know some units literally don't allow you to play with other units, like in the fact that if I were, I don't know what, in the 69th Thought Battalion, there would be a rule probably like that I'm not allowed to play with the
Simps.
yeah, like the 420th System Battalion
Yeah.
for reasons beyond me, even though my best like mate is there, and
Yeah.
it just angers me and pisses me
So
off.
I've got to we'll break down some of the things we talked about, but I've got a counterpoint. For instance, Rank Corps Battalion has a rule that you're not allowed to be in another Star Sim unit. Very specifically, the word Star Sim, primarily pertaining to Clone Wars. But depending on the unit, depending on the relations between units, it can, like for instance, a unit that is Imperial based can be different. But the primary reason we have this rule does not affect Milsim groups or any other era or genre or whatever. You can go be in Vietnam, Halo, all of the things to your heart's content. Because we do want you to be able to play and have fun. The main reason we have a rule about dual uniting and dual star simming is because in my 10 years now almost of being involved in mil sims and star sims, I've learned that when someone is involved in multiple of the same style of group, they are more willing to encounter confrontation and they are more willing to throw away the hard work and effort that they've put into a group instead of sitting down and asking, okay, what's the problem? What did I do? What did they do? Who's in the wrong? Can we solve this? I have seen over the course of that time that people are much, much, much more likely when they have a group of a much more similar uh, origin or style sitting there waiting for them, if you will. So if I was to be in, for instance, Rancor in the 74th, and I got into a fight in the 74th, um, I would be more likely to just be like, fuck this, I've got another group that I'm in, I'm just going to go play with them and either leave on horrendous terms, cause some horrible shit, whatever, instead of sitting down and saying, can I solve this problem? It's something that I have personally learned, so that's why when it comes to Star Sims, we don't allow dual Star Simming. But
It gives you an out path, is the thing. It gives you just an exit to avoid shit.
yeah, it does. Instead of, I'm a very big fan of solving your problems and sitting down and asking what actually caused this. But there's that. So that to that point, that would be my counterpoint. And when we're talking about the 501st, it's as nice
If
as
I
it
may
is.
offer a, before we move on.
Oh, I was going to hit the second point. We're not moving on just yet.
Okay, go for it. Go
Yeah,
for
yeah.
it then.
In regards to how you mentioned, for instance, the 501st, as simple as it may be in our community to point and say, like, oh, the 501st is the example, you gotta remember the 501st learned from other milsim communities that have been here for years and years and
Yeah,
years. And it's
yeah.
all from experience. It's all what has worked. And it's much easier for us in the Star Sim community to look at a unit of that size and say this. Now, there are definitely things that have originated from the 501st in terms of a style of how they've done things. For instance, the standard formatting, and yes,
The rank.
using the, for instance, I would definitely say they definitely pioneered the Star Sim style of CR, CRC, CT, and up. They've definitely pioneered that system, if you will, and it's been copied in all Star Sim teams. But at the same time, I don't necessarily see that as a negative. I see that as actually a very positive contribution, giving some sense of.
I never meant to say that it was negative.
No. I wasn't insinuating that. I'm just saying in general because it kind of leaned with what you were saying. I don't think you meant it to come off that way, but
No, I was just saying, like, as
Yeah.
a fact, like, hey, a lot of people are taking shit from the 501st in a good way, like, experience, right? They got
Yeah.
it from somewhere. It's gotta be, like,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
what I meant.
yeah, of course. But yeah, I would say that it's it, in regards to like the dual star simming thing, that's not even something that originates with Star Sim. That originates from Mil Sim and things of that nature. So that's human nature in and of itself. But something that was brought up that I saw as well in, for instance, Remy's podcast, they brought up the concept of like dual uniting or whatever and how not being allowed. And sometimes I would definitely agree that because they made a very strong point. A lot of the times when dual uniting, for instance, I explained why we have the dual uniting rule or no dual uniting rule. Some communities have it because, for instance, their content is not strong enough to prevent people from coming back or to encourage people to come back. So it's a defense mechanism. It's a don't interact with anyone on the outside. Don't get new opinions. Um, a little bit in the sense of how I would say, for instance, like the Amish.
Oh,
You
so
do.
okay.
It's
Careful.
live in an isolated community kind of thing, if you will. Isolated from the
So-
outside world, so that way you can't have new experiences and want something different.
So
But
Well, I mean,
I know that the Amish get the
about
opportunity at a certain age, but yeah. But yeah,
yeah,
go ahead,
they at a certain age, the Amish are allowed to go out and
Mhm.
go
Yeah.
experience the world. They get to use the phones and the cool stuff and whatnot.
Yeah, but I think it's a
I
little bit of
wouldn't.
that pre-ice, like without the ability to get that option to go out. I think that's what some units who
It's
are
a sort
afraid is why that thing happens. Why they isolate themselves and say you can't be in another unit.
It's a sort of like defense mentality of like, hey, stay in the sewer. You'll eventually get used to the smell.
Yeah.
Don't leave the sewer, or
Yeah.
else you'll notice the smell.
Mhm.
Kind of.
Yeah,
Like,
but
yeah,
you
I see that. I can see that definitely.
But you had a point that you wanted to make, though, Crimson, before we moved on to the next topic.
I think one of the main issues that I have seen, as I consider myself more or less an outsider,
Mhm.
not really a milsim person,
Okay.
because honestly, I just enjoy helping people, have fun. It's all
Mhm.
about the experiences that you make with the people who are around you
Yeah. Yeah.
and having fun. And sometimes people want a more serious sort of, game face on 100% of the time,
Mhm.
and they want to do the RP 100% of the time and whatnot. And then there are people who are just like, I'm just here for the people. I'm
Yep.
not really here for the milsim experience.
Mhm.
And it's, I think, one of the main problems that I have seen throughout, just this one facet of the milsim community is old blood.
Oh
Yep.
yeah.
Old
Old
habits and
blood.
old fights. Yeah.
Well, not necessarily even old fights, just people who have been in milsims and expect milsims or star sims to be a very specific way.
Yeah.
And if it's not that specific way, and it doesn't promote, other types of experiences,
Mhm.
then it can, you know, it's not good. So therefore, it is bad.
Yeah. I would say that.
And
No, sorry. Go ahead. My bad.
because of that, I mean, we get a lot more degradation and rot, not just in the Starsim community, but throughout Milsim in general.
Mhm.
Because, well, for one, you've got several different types of people
Mhm.
who want Milsim to remain a particular way,
Mhm.
Purist.
and usually those voices are very loud and very demanding, and usually end up leading units.
Yeah.
Whereas the people who don't necessarily want to experience milsim that way, but still want maybe a little bit of the aspect of milsim,
Mhm.
are not as loud,
Huh.
and they don't necessarily know how to promote themselves to the rest of the community to sort of change those opinions,
Mhm.
which then allows for the very nature of the community or the communities as a whole to change.
Yeah.
And that is what really concerns me about milsim and starsim in general,
Mhm.
because there are lots of people who have been here for 10 plus years and
Mhm.
expect things to be a very specific way or want things to be a very specific way, and it doesn't really allow for much for other people's experiences. If a unit isn't structured in the exact same way or a similar way, then there's not much room for them to flourish,
Mhm.
and as a consequence, they fade away.
Yeah. I would say what you said is definitely a very true point. I mean, that applies to almost everything in human nature. I would say politics, all this stuff. The people with the loudest voices are heard first.
It's supposed to be a
And
conversation about video games.
no, but it's the point you made. We're talking about communities and governments in Arma and how they're set up, and communities being the units themselves, and governments, I would say, be more the Gark side of things, if you will. Um, but yeah, I would say that a lot of that's very true, and I would say I used to come from the same camp as you would describe before. I was very milsim purist. Like if you weren't defined this way, if you didn't use the standard military structure to define your unit, you weren't milsim in my eyes, and that was because that was all I had been taught. And as time has gone on, as I've learned more, I've definitely seen my share of how units set themselves up, and there are absolutely a few ways that I see 100% that do succeed in comparison to other strategies that are utilized to create a unit or run one. Um, and those strategies do more often than not outweigh and survive, if you will. But yeah, that doesn't necessarily mean that what somebody else is doing is wrong, but it just means that they want to do something a different way, and that doesn't need to be forced upon them the way that you're doing it as such. But I wanted to segue that into some of what we were talking about and what I was talking about originally with what I wanted to do or looking into doing, because this actually came as a result of when we first started interacting with LS. Um, the mod community was very divided, if you will. in the sense
That's
of
one way of putting it, to be honest. Like that's a very
to
nice
put
way
it
of putting it.
politely, without pulling a Dutch again and just going straight into drama. Because we're not trying to do that exactly. We're trying to be constructive here, motherfucker. Uh, um, the community was very divided, and there was no sharing. Units, when they created new things, very much locked those things behind a wall and said, "You can't touch this. This is ours." And something I
Yeah.
realized over time in Rancor, as we began to develop our own things, is that we're not like super advanced by any means, but we've made steps and strides to advance different pieces. And as we have those things have gotten noticed, and people have asked, we've said, "Yeah, here we want to give back to the community. We want to help everybody else." And that's some of what gave me the idea, and what people brought up was, how could we do that on a government-based level, if you will, the same way that GARC does. And I was curious as to some constructive ideas you guys might be able to bounce around here, in regards to, well, no, in regards to, because modding, you guys have very clearly, I would say, in my opinion, from what I have learned, you guys have very clearly outlined the strategy for how to, or a successful way of doing, I don't know what I'm doing with modding. Help. Can you help me? And that's what the aux development comes from. In LS, your whole focus is getting some kind of support or helping people who don't understand how to do this themselves and how to create custom assets themselves, or at least using the assets you provide for them, how to work with those. And that's what the LS is, LS aux support is. And then what I meant more was in regards to units. Something I was curious on doing is, like how Crimzon said, not always one strategy works, but providing for units that exist if they come to the organization that we set up or something like that, right? Um, Multiple ways of setting it up that we've seen work, and just giving them the tools to succeed and giving them advice when they ask for it, not necessarily forcing things on them, but being like, here, this is a way you can set this up, this is the way you set that up, this is the way you set that up, and working just to help build new communities, because a team at the end of the day is a community, one way or another. It's a conglomerate of people working together to accomplish a goal. And yeah, so with what I've like laid out on the table, what would be some good ideas? Start with Crimzon. Some good ideas in regards to putting forward to that, and that idea of creating an organization that helps in that regard, the same way that LS aux does, if you will. But
So I'm just gonna be blunt. I think that's a mistake.
okay.
Yep.
So straight up, that is basically whoever organizes this organization
Mhm.
will be the de facto head, and it is just basically setting up for another GARC,
Okay.
and which may succeed, it may fail, or it may just turn into another GARC.
Okay.
And
Sorry, go ahead.
another thing is GARC pretty much already tried that, didn't they? With the what was it, like the beginner unit or whatever? It was like the 900.
It was the 327th training corps, and that I disagree
You're
with
talking
you
about
there.
when that
You know,
started, like at the beginning of GARC? Is that what you mean?
no, I think he was referring to the training corps in which all unit troopers were trained in a different unit and then
Oh yeah, I'm
chosen
not
to
even
spot.
talking about anything like that. No, yeah.
No, no,
But carry on.
we're
But I
talking more.
mean,
Sorry, go ahead.
let me finish. But basically, where there is like a pool of resources, let's call it the 327th Training Corps,
Okay.
where you can get your starter package for starting your own unit and get the advice and whatnot to do that.
Uh huh.
But however, I mean, that is a way for just basically creating, I want to say, even more drama, because regardless of um who organizes it,
Mm-hmm.
the problem is that if the person is not a observer or whatnot, an unrelated observer, a person who has done this or created this organization, it's just going to be basically one giant ad for the person's unit.
I got you.
And it's not that it's a terrible thing or a bad
Mm.
idea. It's just that it's more just for me, it seems more like an ad strategy to get another recruitment strategy to potentially form more alliances, not only to get more recruits for you and yours, but also everybody who joins this organization will also have, this recruitment path and avenue. So then whether a unit is good or bad is not relevant. It's just a not necessarily, I mean, yes, it would be good to have that leadership, that experience, and all of that. However, if someone is not unbiased, that just changes the whole tone of what is trying to be attempted there.
Okay. Yeah, I would say I definitely understand where you're coming from in regards to that because, for instance, when I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, basically what you're saying is like if I was to say I hand you some paperwork that says like this is how you could do this, there needs to be no strings attached to that, no changes, no nothing. It's a matter of how you interpret that information. I mean, obviously, if they ask you for how do you perceive this, whatever, you're obviously going to give your input. And that's going to happen anywhere, no matter what you do, in anything, in any unit, at any time. That process is occurring, where you receive some kind of training or something, and then you ask questions about it. Um, and I think that being something that you pointed out is absolutely fair. That's very, very true. And a lot of what I was thinking about doing comes from the same spirit that it does in the sense of when people ask, hey, can we have this? Yes, you can. And in the sense of more giving, because for instance, for us right now, I'm very happy with where we are right now. For instance, Rank Corps Battalion, right? Um, just as an example, I'm very happy with where we're at right now. And I don't have a problem with if somebody comes to me and asks me and says, "Hey, can you help us out with this or ask a question or whatever? You can do this or we can help you with that." But I think that whatever you do, it needs to be just a give. I guess Dutch finally has to go. It needs to be just a give, not a take at all. And I think that if we were to do something like that, then that would be definitely what it would need to be. But because as an example, originally when I left the whole of GARC and that whole organization, after I was GARC banned, a great example of how not to do this was people were like, "Hey, make your own GARC," right? And I said, "No, I'm not going to do that." Because I understood proactively that I was only making my own GARC for the purposes of being spiteful. It was not going to be born out of the right mindset. It was not going to be created out of the right mindset. It was going to be created out of malice at the end of the day. And that could do nothing but create more problems. So coming a year later and having a lot more of a step back from the situation. And
so basically, if I'm understanding, in being completely blunt here, what you are saying is that you want to create another GARC, but a better one.
No, not at all. I'm saying that's what I was told to do before. When I first left GARC and first got completely out of involvement, that's what that's what people were like. Do exactly what you said. And that's not at all what I want. I have watched the Star Sim community. I've been involved in it for 3 years now. The Star Sim on Arma has been around for 3 years now. I have watched the community, and I've watched a lot of units come in and out of existence. And I don't want to create a coalition, an alliance, or anything. I simply want to create something with the help of other units. I simply want to create the means to extend lifelines, if you will, or give people an opportunity to have some semblance of guidance without major interaction, like, oh, I'm sticking my hand in your unit and working your unit like a puppet. No, like, for instance, say you started a unit tomorrow and you're like, hey, I would like help getting this started. What are some structures or things I can use that have worked in the past, and how do these systems function? You come to, for instance, say you're involved in the organization, they come to you and they say, hey, can they ask those exact questions? You're like, yeah, sure, here. We have these available. These are some different ways and examples that have existed and have worked thus far in the Star Sim community. You take your pick of which one you'd like to do, and I'll give you the information relative to that or relevant to that, and go ahead and get to work on it. Come back to us when you have questions. If you have any questions about how to do this or how to adjust that, there's no continuous ongoing, you need to change this, you need to change that, you need to come and play with our unit. None of that. Just here's the tools on how to succeed. And that's it, nothing else. That's what I'm talking about. Helping people just because they ask, not expecting something in return. Because I've seen exactly what you're talking about, where people are helping each other for the purpose of a beneficial gain, instead of just people are helping others because it's the right thing to do. You know what I mean?
And I am both an optimist and an incredible cynicist.
Okay.
I love to believe in individuals. However, on the whole, I completely distrust human nature.
Oh, I completely agree with you. I've had the same thought
Um,
process on religion, but we won't go into that.
of course. Um, and in that respect, I mean, as good as the intent behind something may be,
Mhm.
I mean, what is success? And how is success measured?
Oh
When
yeah.
you say, I mean, like you said, there's so much creative freedom and whatnot. And
Mhm.
my concern always goes back to, yes, it is great to have those resources and power to you if you provide those resources. However, um, it's like, I don't want to say it. Well, it's kind of like, who are you to define what success is for
Mhm.
others? And I mean, yes, there is a certain amount of, you have experience, you have um, mm, you've seen a lot in the community for the past couple of years, but what is like what is successful to one isn't necessarily the picture of success.
No, of course.
And I mean, by creating those resources and saying and providing them as, well, hey, this is the picture of success,
Mhm.
um, and here's how to be successful and make your own unit
Mhm.
and whatnot. You are you are creating a unit factory essentially
Okay.
of not necessarily carbon copies, but
Okay.
people with the same base belief that, oh, so here is the manual on how to be successful.
Mhm.
And then those out of the box thinkers, those people who maybe not, I mean, it just sets up for more stifling, in my opinion. It doesn't mean it will happen and
Yeah.
whatnot. And I'm not saying don't do it.
Mhm.
I'm just saying these are things to be incredibly mindful of.
Oh yeah, of course. Um, I would say so. One thing I don't know might have been misconstrued. I really don't feel the need to be in charge of this thing, nor do I think there should be a sole head. Because I think that what you mentioned earlier about success is not just, well, how do you measure success? That's why, for instance, I brought up when I mentioned earlier having different scenarios that have existed throughout our communities as well as even Milsim communities, because it's not just Star Sim. It's at the core, the everything you're doing comes down to structure and how you organize it, and what you do, and blah blah blah. Because even a blob has organization to a certain extent. You're still organized by certain factors that determine to the individual who is partaking in that blob where they stand. Um, but like having the ability, having different examples that have succeeded in the sense of, for instance, I would say a successful community is a community where you have players who are involved, engaged, and are having fun on a consistent basis without consistent negative actions occurring. So, for instance, a situation where you're constantly having players complaining and nothing's changing, or you are having massive player loss due to mistakes being made in whether command decisions, whatever the case may be. Those are negative things that I wouldn't necessarily weigh as a constant state of success. But those are also not going to constantly occur. Um, but yeah, so it's a lot of the questions that are thrown around here in regards to this, or more along the lines of something I was trying to understand about positives and negatives in creating something like this. Not to say necessarily that I will, but I was curious in what ideas exist from other people that can help to steer something like this in the proper direction. Um, but I would think that I think that what we've touched on that is pretty good thus far, and that gives me a couple of things to think about, to say the least. Um, but moving on to our last and final point, if that's all right with you, would be touching on LS and what it has done for the community. I don't necessarily mean that can be good or bad as well. I guess we'll back and forth on that. Unfortunately, Dutch had to leave. He had an operation he had to attend. So it's just Crimzon and I now, but hopefully we can still have engaging enough conversation for all you folks out in the wild who are watching the stream, who will be watching this later on YouTube and such. But yeah, so LS and what it has done for the community. Give me, if you could, give me some positives and some negatives for what you think that Legion Studios has done for the community.
Positives. One would definitely be providing assets that were not performance draining and killing of the frames and memory leaks and all of those good stuffs that have occurred with another mod. And
Give me,
I mean, providing.
Go ahead.
What?
I was trying to.
I was trying to think of another positive.
Yeah, I was trying to steer you if you got lost for a second there. I was like, oh, then give me something else. But yeah, also, by the way, while he's discussing this, guys, I know there's just the two of us. So if you guys have any positives and negatives or things you want to add to the conversation, I know I haven't been reading out loud too much what you guys have been saying, but I've been reading everything. I believe Crimzon is also in the chat, so you can also see some of what you guys are saying. So feel free to participate in the discussion. Go ahead. It'll show up on the stream later as well because the chat box shows up on screen. But yeah, carry on. Positives and negatives.
Another thing that since I have kind of become the lead developer / head is trying to make modding a whole lot easier for everyone via my rewrite of the entire mod. So that everything is simpler and does not take 5 years to find.
That's also a bit of a negative because anybody who has aux mods kind of has to rework it now at the same time to match your stuff. Is it not? Coding wise?
I mean, it's kind of therapeutic, honestly. It's I
mean, maybe for yourself.
Very mindless work.
Maybe for yourself, but I know some coders who are having to change their references and things of that nature. But yeah, it's a little joke, but yeah.
But yeah, things. While the initial change may be a bit rough, I am doing it in stages so that people have at least a month or two before they have to make any changes that they may need or want.
Yeah. Yeah, which is pretty good, to say the least. I would say from my perspective, some positives that LS positives and negatives, I guess LS has.
Well, I've got plenty of negatives, but I mean that's.
I mean, it's just the negatives are just to be fair, so we're not just tooting horns instead of being reasonable and not addressing things. So that way we're covering both ends of the spectrum, and it's not just a fluff parade. I'd rather be realistic, if you will, than.
Oh no! I mean, I totally agree. I definitely think there are some negatives that I am not afraid to.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're not willing to acknowledge the negatives, I'm not saying I'm just saying in general for anyone. If you're not willing to acknowledge the negative things that are going on, then how are you ever going to solve them at the end of the day? So that's a big thing, and for anybody who's watching, it's a humongous thing. But I would say some positive things definitely are bringing, for instance, aux development to the community and allowing people to have a much more accessible way of creating their own units as well as creating their own armors, and also getting people involved with the tools responsible for how to create and how to become mod developers of their own, if you will, which is absolutely great. Another thing that I have seen and have had interaction with personally is the mindset that I, for instance, like when working with Dutch. Dutch and I are of the same mindset of we're trying to help the whole community. So, for instance, the isolationist ideal of, oh, this is my toy, nobody else can touch my toy, um, is a little bit frustrating. But the mindset that I've seen from LS a lot of the times is, hey, we're willing to help you and whatnot, and we're willing to reach out. And if you really want help with this, obviously there's a matter of trust and copyright issues with the models you work on and create yourselves, to try and have some record of what we have done, if you will. Um, but yeah, that's a positive. I think a negative that may have occurred inadvertently, is some, just with human nature, divisions being created, thinking that, and with past mistakes that have been made, creating submods and different spin-offs, if you will, of LS in some way that are, oh, these are my models, not yours, blah blah blah. It happens. That's just people, if you will. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but also reading from the audience, from Blackwing, I'm just like to throw 2 cents in the ring regarding LS. One thing I have to say that's extremely positive. I really appreciate how well LS armor and style works within Armor's environment. And I know that Star Wars can be finicky and hard to get looking right, especially in a Milsim game. Yeah, we would definitely say that's definitely a positive. Like Crimzon had mentioned earlier, creating something that works well with Arma, in comparison, and that takes time and effort to do. So, I mean, hats off to them, and I'm sure if you're in the LS community at all, I'm sure you definitely appreciate the fact that they have put in the work that they have. So, hats off to them for that. Um, what other negatives you got, since we've spewed off a few positives here?
I think one of my major negatives
Mm-hmm.
that I personally believe is a negative. I'm not sure if everybody might see it as a negative, but for me, it is the supported unit tag
Okay.
and the supported unit system.
Okay.
Um, just because it's basically created another artificial division between units, who is supported and who is not, and it's and the rules for what defines support and what not
Mm-hmm.
are not clear.
Okay.
And throughout the idea of what it means to be supported has evolved over the course of LS. Like
Mm-hmm.
several times a week, I get people DMing me, like asking me, "Hey, can we get the supported tag? We already have an aux mod, but can we get the supported tag because it's something that would allow our unit to flourish
Mm-hmm.
or something like that." And the fact that people believe that getting the supported tag is a standard of quality
Mm-hmm.
is an issue to me, a very real issue. Um, just because it's development and creating this mod to me is a passion for the entire community,
Yeah.
not just to use the LS name as a standard of quality or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and seeing units with LS supported or like unit name break LS supported unit and
Yeah.
whatnot to me is just like I I feel very uncomfortable with that because it's being
It's using you, if I'm not mistaken, using you for something that wasn't intended for. It was intended
well
to be a
not
project for the
even just
community.
that. I mean just the fact what makes me uncomfortable is that people are using a tag to gain status
Yeah.
and have associated status with this tag and with being quote unquote supported.
Mm-hmm.
And to me it's not about whether I'm used or not.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the fact that people are attaching importance to this tag and that they're attaching importance to being supported. And in some cases people just want the in name only so they can put it in their Discord or something like
Mm-hmm.
that, which is again something that concerns me greatly.
Yeah.
And I consider that a negative. The fact that we have created an environment where we have allowed that to proliferate?
I think so. For me, coming from a perspective of our unit is an LS supported unit. Air
I mean,
quotes.
my unit is LS supported as
Yeah.
well, so I mean,
Yeah. Um, um, for me, I understand what LS supported actually means. It means, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is what it means to me, I should say, rather. LS supported means to me that there is a level of trust between the team involved in creating the content and the unit that is using that content actively. It's more a gauge of we trust you to follow our rules and regulations that we have in regards to interacting with the material we have created. That's what LS supported means to me. And I know the process as it pertains to gaining the process of becoming LS supported, or at least when we enter the process, was a matter of building trust with assets that exist um, and that are owned by you guys. It's your hard work at the end of the day. And I think it's a matter of perspective is a matter of what you're referring to. It's the way that they are perceiving this because of what it ultimately entails in the sense of Legion Studios is saying we trust you to a certain extent. And you have developed for yourselves a good reputation because of the work and the quality of work you have put on the table and said, hey guys, this is what we're giving you. This is just our passion project. We want people to be able to enjoy it. But because you have such high quality associated with that and the good work you guys do and the support that you do, that has a reputation. And then if you then say, we trust you to do this, we trust you to accomplish this, um, or to work with us appropriately and not cause issues and stuff, um, that people then see and are like, oh, you're friends with them, you're good, and everything of that nature. Um, and obviously that's not what you mean, but that's what happens. And people being able to put, I mean, there's the unit recruitment. Even if unit recruitment and supported unit recruitment just became one thing, it would still exist because in order for you to very clearly define who has that trust already and who is okay, you need some kind of tag that says as such. Um, because when somebody comes to you and asks, "Oh, how do I do this?" There's nothing that's very clear on paper that says how to accomplish that. When you have the supported unit recruitment and you, or sorry, not unit recruitment, but supported unit tag, and the process of applying to gain that, um, that outlines that for everyone. How do you do this? And if you take that away, you cause more problems for yourself at the end of the day, in the sense that people are constantly going to be asking you instead of going and looking at what you very clearly defined, and people will interpret that however they will. If you get my understanding of that, but
and I completely disagree with that. As
the
a principle,
perspective or the
with the fact that the tag represents trust.
okay, what does it mean to you? Let me ask that then. Apart from
I
LS, what
mean,
does it mean to you?
if I am completely honest,
Mm-hmm.
I want to abolish the entire system,
Okay.
but I am a small minority on the team, and I'm not a dictator. So
Yeah.
if there are still devs that want to support that system, I'm not going to say, let's just throw it out the window. Let's throw out the baby with the bathwater and all of that.
No. Yeah.
I mean, I am personally of the open source. I mean, I would prefer that we open source everything.
Mm-hmm.
However, um, it's not my work to open source. We would
Yeah.
have to secure permission from all the developers who worked on specific assets
Mm-hmm.
to open source
Yep.
what we, and that's what I would like to do.
Yeah.
And that's not really a reality at this current time. And like Blackwing said, the team is very fragmented because we, how I view LS is that we are a conglomerate mod of volunteers
Mm-hmm.
who all work at our own pace, and I am in charge of just collecting the work which has been done and then getting it out to the public.
Yeah.
So what that ends up happening, or what ends up happening there, is just that um, we have a lot of different priorities, and I try to provide a unifying sort of priority. However, that doesn't always work.
Yeah.
Um, But to me, LS, honestly, I have no idea what LS support means, because I have been told by different developers and different head developers
Mhm.
different things of what it actually means.
Okay.
Because the system has evolved over the course of since it was introduced, and the terms and rules and agreements about such have not been upgraded or updated.
Mhm.
So really, we've got a bunch of different developers who have different ideas of what and different thoughts about what LS support means,
Yeah.
and different head developers even. I mean, I am a head developer. I have
Yep.
no idea what it actually means.
Yeah.
So rather than continuing to proliferate a system which nobody actually knows what it means, and everybody has their own idea about what it means and interprets it to what it means. And that is totally what I am all for, and I have told the team to Nightwolf, I have told the team to make a unifying definition of what Legion supported has done, and I have tried that
Yeah.
many times. And it's just, I rather than proliferating a system which nobody can agree on what it actually means. I mean, if I have to make it, I'm just going to destroy the system, which nobody else is a fan of, except me. So rather than trying to unify or whatnot, well, I've continued to try and unify the definition, as you will, even though I am not a personal supporter of. Honestly, to rewrite it, because and no longer support it, because honestly, do you know what happens to every single developer that works for and whatnot, who works with the supported units? If they are not in that particular unit, do you know what happens to them?
Are you asking myself or Nightwolf?
It's Nightwolf.
Well, assuming he's going to answer no, if you want to go ahead and do that, so we're not
Okay.
sitting in silence.
So what happens to every single developer that works with supported units and works with the armory or whatnot? I think last time I looked at it, each developer burns out and leaves the team within 6 months.
Yep.
With those kinds of odds, continuing to do, or they just go silent in the development Discord. With that kind of track record for something, there must be something wrong with the system if it kills the drive for our developers to do things.
I think, if I may on this, I think that happens as a result of a couple of things. There's like two or three main things that I think that can be done to solve something of that kind of an issue. But I think that yeah, you're definitely right that that creates a crutch for units. It's a blessing for units who don't know what they're doing, but it also creates a crutch. And I think that you could slightly solve this problem with having a set amount of time that they're supported for in order to prevent them from constantly being reliant on you, like for instance, training people to do new things. For instance, one thing we do in Rancor, we train new developers to do different things. People who express some level of interest, we do teach them how to do stuff. One of our best examples would be I'm not one to do the training, if you will. I'm not going to speak from like, oh, I've taught people how to do this. But Charmer, I would say, is one of our best examples. He is a incredibly driven person, and he has taught himself from the ground up how to do a lot of things. And there's, of course, little pieces of help from here and there. Definitely when working with the LS team, he's gotten some advice on how to do this, how to do that. But he has gone through and learned a lot of that, and we've tried to pass that knowledge on to newer people. Shu would be an example of somebody we've trained from scratch on how to do basic coding and how to put the mod together and how to do different things and package the mod and such. Mute my mic real quick, but yeah, that's an example.
And I would. Oh, you Are you
I do plan on carrying on. I just don't want to subject everyone to the train.
okay? Well, while that's going on, and I mean, I totally would support that if that is what it became.
If that's what supported meant, you're supported for this amount of time, kind of thing, in order to get you on your own
Yes,
feet. Yeah,
but
because
what I
that's
would
yeah.
support more is just a basically a complete revamp and making all of these resources available so that people who are driven and want to learn can. Like, for example, as I'm rewriting the mod, I am making a bunch of documentation, which I plan on releasing to the modding general chat so
Mhm.
that people can understand, well, this is what this means in Arma. This is how different forms of inheritance work
Yeah.
and how you can actually inherit, and so that it's not a mystery, which I mean is useful to those beyond the to the larger modosphere, if you will.
Hmm.
Um, because for some reason, Arma modders really like to proliferate the mystique about what it means to modding. You can
Yeah.
barely find any up-to-date
Yeah.
documentation, and any documentation that is up to date, you have to search for.
But I think that delves into the same realm of, for instance, how you're very much of the mindset of open source. I think that it takes a certain kind of person to self-examine and self-analyze, and realize when that's their own they're forcing their own um, I don't know how to, their own insecurities about things onto things. And I think about that in the sense of the mod or mods that we see out in the community where they're not open source. Now, in base human nature, you're like, oh, this is mine. You're just like this is my stuff, which is, I think, the intention when LS was created originally was to do something of that. I remember originally when it had come out, talking to some of the development team, being like, yeah, it's all open source. But I think that other human beings who don't share the same mindset, who are just take, and then they claim things as their own because they're not willing to put the time and energy that you're mentioning to learn in to get to this point, to get from A to B, is what forces these kinds of responses. And to be honest, I think you have a lot. Like the LS system has a lot of really great stuff. Definitely, you got to come back to being a whole. It's definitely fragmented, I would say. Like it was mentioned in chat and things of that nature. The LS team is definitely more fragmented, but the fact that you're still accomplishing things is a great sign. And I think there are definitely some tweaks that could be made to get things on track. Without necessarily abolishing the whole system, because there are aspects I agree with the system, and there, like for instance, if we were no longer an LS supported unit, I'm not gonna die. Like if we were no longer LS supported because we did something horrible, I would obviously hate that. Um, but if like LS just got rid of the whole supported system and we were no longer supported, that would be a real shame. We still have obviously the stuff we've spoken with you guys about in regards to our access to the mod and what we do, and the understanding between us in the sense of how the present system exists. Um, but yeah, I mean, if it all got restructured for the better, that would be great. It would definitely take time, and it would take things, or it would take time, and it would take energy, and it would take a very large community understanding because people would probably be out of support. Is the best way I could put it. There really shouldn't be any support during the time frame. You should focus on yourselves and getting that working properly, if you will. That's just in my opinion, um, but yeah, I mean, yeah, it's an interesting subject to say the least, and I think we could probably talk about it some more another time, if you will. I think that we've rambled on for quite a while about stuff, but I think we talked about everything that needed to be talked about. I think that we covered a lot of stuff, and to mention, somebody mentioned in the comments why wouldn't we grab some more? You should bring more perspectives from all across the Star Citizen community. Yeah, I plan on it. It just I knew I could easily get a hold of Dutch and Crimzon very quickly. um, and be able to put something together on short notice. I would like to possibly speak to like the TCW team, as well as speak sometime maybe putting together a small group of unit leaders and stuff. Fortunately, myself and Crimzon are both heads of units, so I mean that's two of them, if you will. but yeah, I think it's I think I would very much like to continue doing something like this, and trying to provide perspectives from around the community, without going and pulling a Dutch, as it were, and literally lighting things on fire on live camera, if you will. But no, I love Dutch. He's a great guy. But yeah. Do you have any final things you'd like to throw in, Crimzon? I guess before we close this out, if you will.
I mean, if anybody has any questions, I mean, I certainly love answering questions, as some of you have seen in the LS Discord. If someone directly pings me or whatnot, I always try to respond, and especially about development. I try to keep development about things as open book as I can and keep it as constant. And that's just from my professional experience as a developer in real life. And that's just
How you do things?
I just want to create a good thing for you guys to have fun with. That is my only concern.
Yep.
That So yeah, that's pretty much it. I love helping people. I love making cool things. If anyone has any questions.
I enjoy those things as well. But yeah, thank you for coming out, Crimzon. I very much appreciate it. And thank you to Dutch as well, who isn't here. I think he may still be in the chat, but thank you to Dutch for coming out as well and talking and giving his opinion. I'm going to look into seeing if you guys found that you enjoyed this. Please let me know. Let Crimzon know. Let Dutch know. If anybody has any questions, if you're not in the Star Sim community and you're looking to find out more about what we're talking about, I'll gladly answer those. Feel free to send me questions in Discord or in TeamSpeak or here in the chat, or whatever the case may be, and I'll gladly go out and reach out to them. But otherwise, thank you for your time, Crimzon. I appreciate it. All right.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, not a problem, man. There's a constructive chat, different side of the table, and that's what I wanted. I didn't just want somebody to agree with me. But yeah, thank you for your time and your opinions. But otherwise, I will talk to you later. Have a good day, good sir.
All right. We'll see ya.
All right. Yeah. So I will more than likely be posting that to YouTube. Yeah, I'm curious what you guys thought of that. Get your guys' opinions, if you will. But in chat while we're here, at least, I'll probably upload the video separately or whatever, pull it off of my Twitch and grab that there. But for the guys who are here, what did you think? Thoughts, opinions, constructive criticism, so on and so forth. Okay. Yeah, I know you got it. We touched on something you had said once or twice as well, yeah. What about you, Nightwolf? Chatting your brains out and I ask a question directly to you guys and you don't say shit. Yeah, that's one thing I wanted to do is I know Dutch kind of tried to dip into the drama pool constantly, but I would rather be more constructive about it than against it, just because it sometimes doing that it doesn't help anybody, and I've learned. I don't know. It might be a weekly thing. I might like do it on like Fridays or something. I'm looking to possibly post it to YouTube. I have to figure out how to do that properly, at least. But I'd be interested in doing something because I know I should get more involved with my YouTube channel. I should be more involved with my YouTube channel for at least my own personal Twitch and stuff, and I'm trying to get more involved with my Discord and play different games other than just Arma because my stream is asked for that. And I saw the Bad Frag podcast that Remy did, and that was a general Arma podcast and a general experiences, and I wanted to share our experiences from our world that we experience on a regular basis. But I wanted to try to be positive about it because a lot of the times, like you said, you hear a very it can be very biased discussions, and I didn't want to have that. Even though I've had negative experiences with other sides of the table, it doesn't do me any good to harbor hatred for those things. It does me good to learn from them, and having a positive discussion about it is the only way we're going to evolve as a community. And that's a lot of what I was asking about with like creating something for the community. I'm not like, oh my god, I'm the all-knowing and I'm the only one who can head it up kind of thing. Like, I just wanted to be the one to take the initiative, if you will, and get involved. And I don't feel the need to. Like Crimzon had mentioned, is a very good point. It can absolutely feed back to yourself, but that's something that can happen. That's something that will happen as a result of doing something, no matter what you do, positive or negative. They're going to look at your face, and they're going to look at what you're involved in and break down everything you do. And that can be a positive thing. That can also be a negative thing. Just depends on the success, if you will, of what you did. I'm not really presently we're the third largest unit in Star Sim, so I'm not like need to grow or whatever. Like, no, I would love to continue to grow, but I am not really doing it, to be honest, for selfish reasons. I'm doing it, if I do something like this, I would love to have the support of people like Crimzon and other community leaders who have helped grow the community, to give their examples of like, this has worked for me really well. Of course, there was the bumps and the hiccups and things to look out for. This has worked really well. Here, if you would like it, here you go. Just to give people a place to start, at the least, to start that fire, that kindling, and create their own unit from it and develop it and decide, no, this doesn't work so much, this works, blah, 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 and find new examples of succeeding and growing and thriving. So yeah, but I very much am appreciative to Crimzon and Dutch for coming out and chatting about that stuff. And also, Dana, where are you coming from? Or like, what unit are you coming from? The LS community, the TCW community, anything? Like, it doesn't. There's not really a divide. It's Star Sim altogether. But where you come from? On Arsenal issue? Do you mean like personal Arsenal? Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I'm hoping to get in contact with like Jay or whatnot. I try to get a hold of him because technically we are still Gark banned. Rancor is still Gark banned technically due to my mistake more than a year ago. We have spoken to other Gark units in regards to getting unbanned, and some actually support us. But yeah, so I would love to actually reach out to them and see if they're up to coming out for like a podcast like this one. But yeah. And in regards to allowing the use of Arsenal in general versus prefab kits and scripted loadouts, most of our kits, everything we do is in the Arsenal. We don't have like a pre-made loadout that when you spawn into the slot, it just gives you that shit. We have a uniform guide that does outline what you should be taking with you and things of that nature. And obviously we have certifications and MOSs that tell you what you should be taking, which should and should not be taking. For instance, if you don't have any kind of AT training and you've never used a rocket launcher in your life and you don't understand the fact that there's backblast and you'll hurt and or kill your friendlies with that backblast, you shouldn't be taking it. But yeah, we do have a uniform guide that does define what you should have for your rank and your MOS and such. Just because it's that we do have a system in place, so trying to follow that is good. You just joined during the podcast? The Discord or the unit, Landon? Oh, I see that. Yeah, you joined the thing. Yeah, I mean, if you're interested in joining the unit, you can say so in that chat and follow the instructions of your join message, and it tells you what to do. But yeah. Do you guys, for like Kyle and Dano, do you have any questions for me that I can answer in the meantime, now that the podcast is over? I mean, I would have loved to have been able to answer them there. I was trying to focus on that and trying not to, because normally when I'm having a conversation, like a casual conversation, I will interrupt you constantly. I expect you to interrupt me back. I don't do it as a disrespect thing. It's on the tip of my tongue. I need to get it out. If you watch my streams at all, I will interrupt people constantly, and I expect to be interrupted in return. I don't care. Just talk. Obviously, there's a measure of when something needs to be said. and you need to shut the fuck up and listen. But yeah. You can join our unit, yes. That's perfectly fine. Are you in the 101st? Is that what you're saying? Because we do, like I mentioned, the dual star sim thing. We don't allow dual star simming, unfortunately. And I mentioned the reason earlier. If you weren't here, I'll briefly cover it. But the main reason we don't allow dual star simming is because when we allow you to be in like other units, if you want to go in Milsim and do Modern or World War II or Vietnam or Halo or Warhammer, go for it. Have fun. The main reason we don't allow dual star simming in Star Wars with other Star Wars units is because you're more. We found from my experience, you are more inclined to pull a fuck it, I don't need this, and throw your hands up in the air when something goes wrong instead of solving your problems because you have something of a similar variety right there. That you'll just, all right, I'm just gonna go over there, blah 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 blah. Like there's no negative penalty that you associate in your brain with just leaving. Um, I want you to solve your problems and sit down and say, what did I do wrong? How can I fix this? Instead of just fucking off, if you will. That's the main reason we don't allow dual star simming. I totally understand why people, when someone wants to leave, when they have their reasons, I'm not going to stop you. Go for it. I very much like to get communication so I can learn from my mistakes and improve. But that's our philosophy on dual star simming. So if I read that correctly, and you are in the 101st, if you are happy in the 101st, stay in the 101st. If you're happy, you're content, you're enjoying yourself, stay there. If you absolutely want to join Rancor, you would need to do proper discharge. Whatever the case may be, you'd have to properly get discharged. I always encourage people to explain why you would like to be discharged, and try to solve your problems more. Oh, fuck me. Oh, God. Maybe 101st. Wait, I'm not in any unit yet, but I would probably be the 101st. Oh, okay. Well, if you're not in any Star Sim unit on Arma 3, you're allowed to join Rancor, yes. Assuming you meet the age requirements. If you're under that, you'd have to talk with a recruiter. They decide if we allow you to join or not based on maturity. But if you also wanted to join the 101st Doom Company, that would be a problem. They'll probably tell you no, assuming that you explain to them that you're in Rancor. They'll tell you no more than likely, and I would also be a little bit upset that you tried to join both and be in both at the same time, because it's not fair to them as much as it's not fair to us, and they also have the same rules about dual star simming. I don't know the reasons for the rules for dual star simming, but all I can do is explain ours. So, but Blackwing, where are you coming from? Just out of curiosity, I know that if I'm not wrong, if Nightwolf is still here, I'm pretty sure that's 9th AC Nightwolf. If I'm not wrong. Okay, fair enough. I mean, to each their own, if you will. Yeah, like I understand that. Like I know I've known quite a few people who are involved in multiple units. It's just unfortunately from our experience that my experience has taught me that from Milsim, because the Milsim I was in, it was absolutely a no. And then I've been in units that do allow dual star simming, and I've experienced dual uniting myself, not from a negative perspective where it was allowed. And I understood the emotions that I was feeling. I was very torn, and very ADD as well. Like I needed constant entertainment. And I didn't like that about myself, so I personally was like, I really can't be in multiple units. I need to just focus, especially when it's my unit. I should be focusing on it. But yeah. You know what Gark is, but what is Star Sim? Well, Gark is a community or an organization within Star Sim. It is made up of units within Star Sim, primarily led and headed up by the 501st. It consists of the 212th, the 101st Doom Company, the 91st Mobile Reconnaissance Corps is a more recent addition, and I believe the 5th Security Fleet is in the process of joining GARC as well. So that is what GARC is. Star Sim is just the net we define as Star Wars Arma Milsim-ish. or the minimum a certain amount of milsim-ish, if you will. That is what Star Sim is, if that answers that question. Yeah, no, I totally understand that. Yeah, that makes sense. Like you're such a generic trooper role. It's hard to have too much freedom outside of that. So you're like, if you would like to have that kind of experience, correct me if I'm wrong. You can go get it somewhere else if you'd like, but you can also be here, if I'm grasping that properly. And also, good. Glad I answered your question, Landon. Oh, what up, Shu? You weren't even here the whole time. Don't even 10 out of 10 me, you bitch. We have no plans for Spec 4, Arc, any of that. It's just straight up white Phase 1 clones and pilots. Fair enough. Yeah, we have, in Rancor, we actually break the rules a little bit of the standard mold of Star Sim. For instance, there's not too much lore in Rancor Battalion. We have Arc, ARF. We are going to have RC. We are literally in less than a month going to have armor. We are going to have Galactic Marines. We have aviation, both fixed wing and just lats. And we have our infantry, our general infantry. But we are very much of the mindset it has to have a purpose. It can't just exist. I would very much like to give people the opportunities. That's one big thing as well. I want people to have the opportunities to get involved with what they want. We also have airborne. I didn't mention airborne. My apologies. But none of these things outnumber our general infantry. Our general infantry should always be the largest population. And one big factor in deciding to allow those things was that if we were to do that, we need to grow them properly. We need to understand what negative side effects come with opening the door to those kinds of things. And we need to be prepared for them, if you will. I'll go into that here in a second. I'll read more of it, I think. Spec 4 for a unit of your size is perfectly acceptable. I see too many units in the trap of too much too fast. Yes, absolutely. We learned, yes, all detachments for Shoes Gaming is the head of the ARC Trooper program in Rancor as well, for clarification. But yeah, I used to be in the 501st, and when I was in the 501st, I got to go to Joint Ops with the 212th, and I watched the 212th implode at one point in time because they had more detachments than they did general infantry. And they just opened. They, of course, learned from that mistake and went back to their roots and then slowly grew them out properly. But I was not going to make that same mistake. So the way that we do it when we open a detachment is every detachment gets a 3 to 4 month rollout window, and they roll out in phases. They're a 3 to 4 phase program for deployment. Basically, the unit has to be capable of surviving the trauma of the creation because it's like an organ transplant. Your body has to be able to survive the surgery, and then you have to be able to not reject it, if you will. Oh, Mini Ruby, thank you for the follow. Appreciate it. But you have to be able to survive that. So normally what we do is, for instance, I'll give you Airborne's rollout period. When Airborne first deployed, in the first month, it was all about practical application. I don't give a fuck what your uniform looks like. You will not wear it. You're going to wear the same shit, plus whatever's a main factor in how you do things. So, for instance, they are the jump pack. What's up, puppy? Their stuff is the jump pack. So they took their jump pack out into the field, and they were just wearing regular Phase 2 uniforms with like the color pattern that was going to be on their uniform. That was it. They weren't wearing their buckets, like the helmets. They weren't wearing their skirts with the fucking shoulder slugs or whatever. None of that. All we need for that first month out of you is your practical application and testing in a more public environment, testing the function of your detachment, making sure that it's sound. There aren't major changes that need to be made, and if there are, that's what this month is for. The second month is all about solidifying that fact and the operation of that detachment. Then they get to wear their uniform, their flat color, like no color, just uniform. So the bucket thing, no special shit. All right. And during that time frame, they're also prepping for recruitment to bring in people to the detachment, the number that they're allotted. So, for instance, when we started Airborne, we started them with 5. A squad of Airborne is 10. A typical Rancor squad is 14. So they're small by comparison, but they're meant to be a QRF for us. And yeah, that was a big deal. That is a very big deal, and something I learned in my time in the Final First. Just because you have something special, people will hate you for it. So we did the same thing with ARC and ARF when they deployed. The first thing they did is they get no uniform. Every detachment does this. You get no uniform. It's all about what you bring to the field, and what has actually happened as a result is people want to see you get your uniform. They are actually clamoring for it. When ARC first deployed, people kept telling them, when are you guys getting your uniform? They're like so excited to see them get to wear their shit because all they got, yeah, very true, Ruby. All they got was the player. They just got to experience what they're going to bring to the table, and they loved what was being brought to the table. So they're like, you guys are doing a great job. You're representing your shit properly. I want to see you in your uniform. I want to see you succeed. So yeah, then after their recruitment, their next month is all about focusing on getting their recruits and their trainees up to snuff and getting them on par, making sure there are no other changes that need to be done to the program. This is their 3rd month. At the end of the 3rd month, they have an option to take a 4th month. To take a 4th month if necessary. If they still feel like they're on wobbly ground and they need to adjust and they're not solid in what their function should be, they can do that. If they choose to end that, then we cut the training program part of it down, and we give room for mistakes. Like, you're going to make mistakes as a leader, new detachment leaders, people who aren't in those roles commonly and are new to it. I'm very much of the learning experience. Like, you need to learn and you need to grow. You're going to make mistakes. I will support you during the training period and we'll get you on track. If you run into something you've never had happen before, I'm going to be understanding. If you make the same mistake multiple times, I'm going to fucking cut you at your knees. Like, you had a chance to learn and you didn't learn from it. But I'm very much of the letting people grow and letting people learn to become the best version of themselves possible. Creating this dynamic that they earned it instead of just getting it. Yeah, absolutely as well. That's something that's been ingrained in my brain. You don't get anything. I don't care where you came from. If you're like, oh, I want to join Rancor, am I going to get like a rank or something? Absolutely fucking not. That couldn't mean less to you. That couldn't have more zero fucking value to you. You will throw that away in a goddamn heartbeat. Like, not even kidding. You will not even think twice. When something goes wrong, it's gone. And for instance, with the unit that I mentioned earlier, when I was in Milsim, yeah, a lot of people do care about it. And I mean, I will 100% admit, I cared about it for the longest time. When I started Rancor, though, I started at the rank of Staff Sergeant. And as... yeah, they're old photo shoot. I need new ones, bitch! But as Rancor grew, I put my rank up when it was necessary. Not before, not after. Only when necessary did I raise my rank to accommodate. And I started out in a squad as a Staff Sergeant, and then after we grew into 2 to 3 squads and I was going up to platoon, then I advanced my rank. Yeah, but I know so many people and I've seen so many units that exist. That exist, and all they care about is what their rank is or whatever. They start a unit with 3 people and they're a marshal commander, or equate to Milsim terms, you're a colonel or a fucking brigadier general or some shit. Like, you don't need that. What does that do? Firstly, you have nothing to look forward to, personally. Nothing. In terms of your own gratification of, I've achieved this. Not a fucking thing. And then secondly, you don't command that many people. There's no reason for that. That doesn't make sense. And it's stupid. They do. They normally do. When a CO makes that kind of a call, normally it's a bad move. They very obviously need that, right? Yeah, they do. And it's it's interesting, but yeah. Hell yeah, dog. Hell yeah, man. Memer Commando. I'm sure that'll be a meme once I'm a commander. Or once I'm a marshal commander, I'm sure. Yeah, it really is. Mm, mm. Um, but yeah. Yeah, normally. It's normally a lot of the times I've watched, so like back in Milsim, in my 100% serious Milsim, um, back then, it was also, let me change the name of this to like public discussion about Star Sim or whatever. Um, but uh, somebody spell the word discussion for me. I'm brain farting. Thank you. That's good. Yeah, I spelled it correctly. Okay. Yee. But yeah, in the units that I was in 100% of the time, or 100% serious 100% of the time, fuck! Brain! Where was I going? Oh, yeah, we watched units constantly being made because somebody, yes, it will be Landon. I'm going to be playing like all night tonight, to be honest with you. I'm going to stream the op. I'm going to, then after the op, probably switch to another game. Maybe play a little VR or play some other games, maybe play with the stream. We'll see what comes my way, but I'm making a very big push to try to play more games on my stream and be more involved with my Discord and stuff like that because I've been missing out on it, if you will. I haven't been given the attention that it deserves. As a streamer, I should be doing that more. So I need to improve that personally. And also, I don't think I ever said Ruby, thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. But also, next fucking song. But yeah, we watched units rise and fall constantly. No problem. Rise and fall constantly, and I could put a fucking expiration date. Specifically, by talking to the leader, I could tell you exactly when the unit would die. Because I could tell you what decisions they would make in the right, and then ones that would make in the wrong that would burn their community to the ground. And it same still applies here. Even though like a lot of the units are labeled they're Star Sim, they're Mil Sims underneath. Like they're right under there, and I could look at a unit CO and have a conversation with them and be like, "Well, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? What's your logic?" And 9 times out of 10, I'm like, "So why are you a CC?" It's like, "Oh well, I thought I should start and have room to grow." I'm like, "Room to grow is you grow when the unit grows, not when your ego grows." You need to fucking recognize that and self-reflect. Fortunately, I've had a lot of great people teach me over the years, and I've had the opportunity to learn from their mistakes, learn from my own, and do a lot of different things. Yeah, fuck you, bitch. I see that, you little fucker. I see you. But yeah, like I mean. I'm still learning every single fucking day. I learn from new situations that occur, from problems, and I try to self-reflect and self-reflect words. Self-reflect and adjust as much as I can, because like a great example, something I'm very very proud of, was after we got Gark banned. The guy who turned that recording over, his name was Max. He turned the recording over where I admit I made a mistake. I won't go into super details unless you'd like me to explain. But I made a mistake. And when we got Gark banned, he came to me and he was like, "Hey, dude, I'm so sorry. I had no idea what they were going to do with it." And I mean, I still to this day, I'm like, how could you not know what they were going to do with that? Like, they asked you to come and record a conversation between you and I. Like, how could you not know that was going to happen? But he's like, "Hey man, I'm so sorry. I understand if you never want to speak to me again." And he was genuinely like bothered to an extent, from what I could tell. But I said to him, I was like, "Listen, dude, I forgive you, and the reason I forgive you is it does me zero, fucking big fat ol' zero, good to be angry at you, to be upset with you, because the more angry and upset I am with you, the more I'm going to focus on that instead of moving on and helping the people in my unit and helping grow my unit. And in a year since that has happened, we're the third largest unit in all of StarSim. Because I don't let shit like that or stupid shit that other people do bother me. I will never fucking forget what you did. That doesn't mean I'm going to sit there and be angry about it, because it's just fucking slowing me down. It's not slowing you down. Nothing's changing in your world unless you're sitting there and holding a grudge at me. But yeah, like something General Mattis has said is he said, "I'm begging to you with fucking tears in my eyes, do not fuck me, because if you fuck me, I will destroy you." End of fucking story. And in subcontext, he had artillery zeroed on their fucking position, the enemy's position, like ready to wipe them off the face of the fucking earth. Always, always, always remember and always plan and be prepared. Never forget. That doesn't mean I have to sit there and get upset about it, but simple as that. Yeah, but exactly what we said. Never forget, but move on. Yeah, it just doesn't do me any good. I learned that lesson when my mom died, because my family fought for 6 months straight, every single day, 3 times a day. I had to learn how to stop being angry and focus on the facts of the situation and focus on just what comes next, ultimately. But yeah, a lot of fucking shit. And Butler, yeah, I got here, but they were out for you since the beginning. It was, I can't speak for their actions, nor should I, their motives or whatever, because there were a lot of people in the 501st and in GARC units who were friends with me or knew who I was and were like, "Oh my gosh, you're creating a unit. I want to go and join your unit." And that can be scary to an extent. But as well, not doing it properly is a very, 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 very big deal to GARC, as well as I've learned it needs to be a very big deal for myself, and it is. Because you owe them the respect of, in the same way that I asked that if you're going to leave Rancor, explain to me why. Tell me why. What did I do wrong so I can fix it? And thank you, by the way, 12 T's, for the follow. I appreciate it. Thank you. Takes a second. There we go. Fuck. What was I saying? But yeah, I understand why. Like I had a bunch of people who were coming to me like, "Hey, I want to join," and they have a lot of admin. So do we now. They have a lot of admin, and you need to keep track of these people. And some of these people are important people. So it can be a little bit scary, even no matter what you say. It can be a little scary to hear, like, oh, somebody that I trust wholeheartedly is like, "Hey, I'm going to fucking leave and I'm going to go join somebody else." Just to spur of the moment or off a cuff. It can be a little terrifying, but also proving that I'm doing something wrong, which is important, very, very important, is a very large aspect of the situation. You can say as much as you want. Here you said, she said, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't do anything unless you have evidence, because you could just smear campaign somebody with that kind of shit. It's the same shit that, for example, when you have... I'll use an IRL example. There's examples in history now, if you will. Everything's history that's not now. Of people going and, like a woman, for example. Please do not take this topic the wrong way. I'm not trying to be controversial or say anybody's lying about blah, 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 or use any real examples. If a woman comes and says, "Oh, he raped me," or a man says he raped her, or he raped her, she raped him, whatever. If you can't prove it, if someone comes with malintent and it's just like, "Oh, he did this to me," or "She did this to me," and it's malintent, there is no actual evidence, it didn't actually happen, you're just here to destroy them, that's a very serious fucking thing. And what's serious to StarSim units, in a lot of cases, is poaching. So, you could just lie all you want, and if you don't have any evidence, you can't do anything. I can't hold somebody, I can't trust every single word that comes out of somebody's mouth, because there's a whole bunch of factors that can influence your next decision. your emotions, how you're feeling about it, how you feel about a certain person. So many different things. So yeah. But I found you through Forensic, and I could tell you that you were respected and liked, and I could see why they felt kind of threatened. Yeah, I mean, awesome that you found me through Forensic, by the way. Originally Butler, I remember when you first came to the stream, and then I remember when you made 30 different accounts. Not Butler, also not Butler, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, there's a lot of different circumstances and things that happen that people feel threatened. And I understand. I understand it feels like an attack against yourself, especially for somebody like myself. I take great pride in my men in a lot of regards because I will pour a lot of myself into helping you. I like to help people a lot. It's when I do work, I love helping people. Like for instance, what I do now, I'm a third-party vendor, and I go into a store and somebody asks me like, "Oh, hey, where's this?" I don't say, "Hey, I don't work here," first. I'm like, "Hey, I think it's over there. Just a heads up, I don't work here, but I'm more than happy to help." And I just like helping people. I like helping people solve their problems. So when someone comes in and they're like, "Hey, I don't know how to do this," I like to help them, and I like to be like, "Hey, this is how you can do it. There's a whole multitude of ways to solve this problem, but this is one of the ways that I have learned." And especially giving advice in like life circumstances because I've been through quite a lot. I like to give the way I've gotten through things. I mean, that's my experience. That's what I know. That's not always the right thing for the right situation. Every situation is different, but yeah. And also 12s, I saw you followed, but say hi in chat. Hello. I appreciate the follow, by the way. Hey. But yeah. Anybody else? Throw a question out there that we can talk about. I want to stir the pot a little, have some conversation. I appreciate that. I'm enjoying this. I drink or something. Yeah. Yeah, one thing we've definitely tried to do in Rancor that we're still developing. The military police is not available just yet in Rancor. It's something that exists kind of in the background. But we have MPs. And their responsibility is not to punish. Their responsibility is to contain the situation, just like police, contain the situation, isolate the victims and witnesses and blah, blah, blah. Get the story from multiple different locations and go from there. I'll tell you when something's wrong, though, something I have a very serious issue with is when somebody goes and you did something wrong or they did something wrong, or you're both in the wrong. If you come into a situation, and I say this to my men all the time, if you come into a situation and the first thing you do is point your fucking finger at somebody else for something they did before you tell me what you did wrong, I'm gonna fucking kill you. Because you need to self-reflect as much as possible before you're capable of telling somebody else what they did wrong. You better know what the fuck you did wrong. Because that's some fucking bullshit. But yeah, that's a big fucking deal. And with our MPs job is to separate the situation, get the eyewitness testimonies and case and blah, blah, blah from as many people as you can. Exactly, Butler. And they go and they bring that information to the chain of command of the person that's involving. And like, when I have a conversation with you, when I try to deal with something, I don't give a fuck about what they did. I focus on what you did. What did you do wrong? Because I always tell my guys, I'm like, I don't care what the fuck they're doing. You let them dig the fucking hole they're sitting in. They want to dig a hole deeper and deeper into the ground because they're doing something wrong. Great. I care about what you do. You are the only person that I care about in this situation. Fucking hold your tongue, let them fuck up. Not you. Your character means more to me, and your integrity means more to me, and showing me that you're capable of holding your fucking tongue is important. Because there's a time and a place. I'm not gonna fucking... I've definitely made mistakes, and I've definitely ostracized people in a public situation where I shouldn't have, and I've tried to learn from those situations. Try not to act on impulse in that regard, but it happens. It has happened, and thank you, by the way, Dano, for the follow. I appreciate it. But yeah, I tell people, I was like, let them dig the hole. And and I'm going to answer Ruby's question first, Shu, before I answer yours, because bitch, you in Rancor. So what's your ideal operation look like in terms of fun and a challenge? So for me, my ideal operation, I can't wait. Yeah, thanks, Dano. I think I'm gonna shoot for like next week or something. As excited as I am to try and do another one quickly, that would be in poor taste. I should wait and collect things a little bit more and get stuff together because I am running on the impulse of do it now, blah blah blah. But that's it's fucking dumb. I shouldn't do that. So I'm gonna try and shoot for like next week to do one of these again. Hopefully I'll be able to get in contact with some guys from like Gark, or maybe I'll just have some other units out and have grab like 2 or 3. Ideally, I want like 4 people, maybe 5 people to have a conversation with. I had just the 3 today. I wanted to have Charmer as my third guest for this. He's my 3rd in command in Rancor, but he's a very level-headed person. I appreciate and value his input. But yeah, I will see you later, Dano. I'll be on the rest of tonight if you're around. Feel free to pop in. I'll definitely be streaming the op here for Rancor in like 45 minutes. So my ideal op, I would say, would be having pretty solid frames, which we're fortunate enough to have. We have a pretty solid server team who have trial and error to put together a very, very good system. My ideal operation will be a well balance of droids to friendlies, but I do enjoy a challenge. I do like solving problems. And the way I was taught and or raised, if you will, in like Milsim and Starsim, was through a trial by fire and adapting to pressure. And I love pressure to an extent. I love being able to pivot and quickly solve my problems. And the unit I was in, that 100% serious unit, was the training for that was you went to boot camp for 13 weeks, 5 days a week for 13 weeks. It was intended to be a Marine Corps Milsim 100%. And then when you went to the School of Infantry, where you got trained in infantry tactics, you went and you were there for only 8 days of your entirely own planning, so you decide when you go to it. Because you already earned your way into the unit, from now you can just plan it and get it done. What up, Viper? But with that, the quality of training that all of our guys had was through the fucking roof. Like, every single person, there was not a person I looked at and was like, he can't do the job, he can't. No one. They were all fantastic. Didn't matter if they were dumb as doornails. They were capable of solving just about any problem. Oh yeah, awesome, Viper. That would be great. To some extent, I wanna do some stuff, but yeah. But yeah, the quality of them was really, really great, and I don't expect that out of my men in Rancor. As much as I would love to, I want to provide a more casual experience, and I'm creating a place within Rancor to a certain extent where the quality of every person is a little bit higher. Without creating a divide in the community, it's going to be a very challenging subject to tackle, but I'm excited to tackle it. But I love having a group of people around me that meet that standard and getting into a pressure cooker kind of a situation and pivoting and adapting and killing it, or just accomplishing it. I get such a sense of satisfaction from that. I enjoy the hell out of it. And that's like an ideal op for me. I want something that causes me to think and to solve my problem. That's not always how everybody reacts. Not everybody was taught the way that I was taught, which can sometimes be demoralizing because people are like, oh, that sucked, that was this. I was like, well, we need to learn from this. We need to look at this way. Not everybody's looking at it through the same lens and not recognizing that Zeus did this to me because this. I made this mistake, or this happened, or I wasn't considering that the entire enemy fucking fleet is on the other side of that hill. It can be demoralizing, but for instance, you can ask Viper, who's in chat, who said, ew, first FR, the things we used to do back in the day, you would sit on a hill for 6, 7, 8, 24 hours and do nothing because you were told to do it. And you'd say, aye, sir. And that was it. You didn't question it. You just did, because that's how the unit worked. The fail rate of people going through training was like 90%. passing or failing boot camp. And boot camp was not a fucking shoot this target, blah, blah, blah. This was get screamed at for hours and make it through the process. That's what it was about. It was about your discipline and your willingness to adapt and evolve, because it was a Marine Corps unit. Improvise, adapt, overcome. But that's a big thing for me. But not everybody. I didn't set that standard walking through the door, and I didn't want to. I've done that. I enjoy that in moderation. So, that can be a little frustrating at times, but taking a step back and realizing what Oh yeah, Firewatch was great. You just got to hang out with your buddies. You got to hang out with your friends, listen to music. Like, we had 1FR radio. You literally sat there and listened to the radio and chatted with your buddies about life and things that were going on. You really got to know some people. Yeah, units, it's the same as here. Units rise and fall constantly. But yeah, that's exactly where it was, Puppy. It was Battlefield, unfortunately. I would have loved to have had that in, like, Arma, but it was a Battlefield milsim. But I'm really happy that it was in Battlefield, because everything was PvP for concept or content. Or for perspective, everything was PvP. Fuck. Yeah, it was all PvP. It was against other players. So the satisfaction of beating another player or another unit using your tactics and outmatching them and outthinking them with your men who followed orders to the fucking T while improvising to solve their problems was fantastic. So, I look for those little pieces in things I do constantly, but I enjoy what I do. I love getting good up. I love a little bit of a challenge or thinking a little bit. I don't like just the same shit all the time. I can do the same shit all the time because I did that back in the day for 7 years. But, but yeah. But yeah, what you did say about their mental toughness, having the mental fortitude to look past what's in front of you and think about other perspectives and other things that happened and not just think about your experience is something I value a lot in others. Because I don't have to fucking explain it to them and be like, hey, this is blah, blah, blah. Recognizing that yourself, a lot of problems arise constantly within units. For Rancor, it happens sometimes. Thankfully, we have the proper systems in place where people go to the right people before they just start spewing shit off. But they don't think about why somebody else could have acted this way, why somebody did this, or why somebody did that. And they'll get super frustrated and super upset and be like, why, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, did you think about the fact that maybe they're dealing with some awful shit at home? Did you think about why this? It doesn't make it acceptable, but have you considered that before you tell me cut their fucking head off? Like, did you ask them? Did you try to solve the problem first? Did you just do this? Like, it happens. At the lowest levels to the highest. It always happens, but people learn from it. So, that's how it go. That's how it be. So, yeah. Give me something else to talk about. Also, Ruby, where are you coming from? I'm curious. Why did I decide to get into Milsim? I was going into the United States Marine Corps. I decided I didn't know what the fuck I wanted to do with my life when I was in high school. I had not a clue. And then one day I decided I was being lazy. I wasn't getting great grades. Even though I could, I wasn't. And I said to myself, I was like, I'm tired of being nothing. I'm tired of skimming the fucking bottom. I want to achieve something. I want to, if I'm going to do something, I will be the best at it. End of story. And I decided I wanted to join the Marine Corps. And I went through the process of signing up. It terrified my mom at the time. And I went through the process of signing up, and I enlisted. And I went to MEPS, the Military Enlistment Processing Station. But I went to MEPS and got processed on January 4th, 2012. And then that same month, I was looking for something similar that was going to be like my experience in organization and to have fun and to get to live in the shoes a little bit. And I found a Milsim team. Um, and I met these guys playing Far Cry. Um, and we got to talking and blah blah blah. They're like, "Oh, you should join the unit." Blah blah blah. And I did, and that's how I got into Milsim. I was totally fine with the way that everything was structured because that's what I was joining. I was like, at least it'll help me get ready a little bit. And that's what I was looking to do. But that's how I got into Milsim. Two of my coaches were Marines, but they used to use those experiences to better our team. Like some days were mental toughness days, and they would push us so we would be better. Yeah. In the same sense, if people say to you like, "I've been through worse," that's mentally saying like, I've dealt with this. I know this is going to be better. I've had enough experience in my life with this to be like, hey, this is just the wall that's in front of me. I need to move past this. And that's, yeah, it's a fucking big deal. Mental toughness is a very important trait to have. The foresight to think outside of what's in front of you. So, yeah. Yeah. What else you guys got? We got like 40 some odd minutes. Less than that, roughly, for the app. What have happened? Oh, thank you, Ruby. I appreciate that. That means a lot to me right now, actually. So thank you. Was my inspiring conversation what got you at the end of the day? Grab a drink really fast, a beer pick. How long is the boot camp? For Rancor, or for the unit I was going into, or for the Marine Corps? I have that answer right back at that. Let's see. I appreciate it. And I asked you earlier, by the way, Ruby, I don't know if you answered. I was like, where are you coming from? Like, are you in the Star Sim community? Are you, like, what's the... What side of the spectrum are you from? And how long is the boot camp at Rancor? Rancor's boot camp is not intended to be a... First to Far, that Milsim team I was talking about. Rancor's boot camp is all about teaching you the mod, teaching you the controls, and teaching you understanding of that. But also to comment, by the way, Ruby, I'm glad you were here, and you also provided some great feedback as well in terms of the points you were making. So, thank you for that. But yeah, boot camp is all about teaching you the controls, the mod, adjusting you, and getting you acclimated to the space you're in and moving in it, and not being able to walk about in it and understand. This is a droid. This is how many shots they take to kill. This is how many shots I take before I'm going to go unconscious. Oh, okay, cool. But yeah, how many shots I'm going to take. SOI, which is the School of Infantry, is a 3-day course. Like 45 minutes to an hour for each a day. Except for the last day, which is much shorter. But that is about... Oh, thanks, Blackwing. If he's even still here, I haven't seen him in a hot minute. Yeah, SOI is about teaching you how to be, for instance, day one is basic rifleman. Day 2 is advanced infantry tactics, and day 3 is vehicles, customs, and courtesies. Understanding how to interact with vehicles at an infantry-based level, and going and learning those different aspects. Those days, we try to make you take a day break in between each of them. We try not to let you do them one after the other, because you won't absorb the information as well. You're pretty much guaranteed to forget 70% of what we teach you. You're going to retain maybe 30% of it. So we want you to get the opportunity to forget it. That way you can recall it. We make you take notes. You can recall it, pull it to the front of your memory, and then it sticks harder because you'll have an emotional response to that. Instead of, oh, and that will mean a lot more in your own head, and it will stick harder. So, yeah. And thank you, Ruby. I don't know if you'll be around for the op. I'm assuming you're saying good luck, you'll be gone. But yeah, thanks. And if you haven't already, feel free to join Valhalla, which is my personal streamer Discord. But yeah, does that answer your question, Butler? No. Where, honestly, actually, David, talking to you, there's a lot of the confusion in my head about rank. Well, there's a lot of confusion around what happened, and I will gladly and wholeheartedly share my mistakes and involvement in the situation. If you were here when I described what happened between myself and Max, I think you were. I didn't describe what mistake I made. But what happened was I had been talking to Max. I left the unit, and about a month later, I had been talking to Max verbally, as well as some messages here and there just to get in contact with him. Basically, when he was in the 101st, he was playing DayZ, and he made friends with like the super popular DayZ streamers who were streaming for like 4,000 or 5,000 people. And he went and he decided, oh, I'm gonna start streaming. Started streaming, and he was getting like 200, 300, 400 viewers a stream. The guy stopped streaming for some reason. No fucking clue why. I'm like, you have 400 viewers concurrently every time you start streaming. Why aren't you continuing to stream? Most of us would dream of that. But he was streaming, and I had left the 101st. I transferred from the 501st to the 101st after I got too busy to be the ARC commander and had to leave because of my own little mistakes. But I left, and after I left, the 101st went through a very, very, very rough patch where they were like imploding. And I was talking to him in person. He was like, yeah, he was like, I don't know what's going on with the 101st, but I think I'm going to leave. Actually, you know what? I'm going to leave right now. And he left my Discord call and went straight into there. And, but he left my Discord call. And after he left the Discord call, I didn't speak to him for like a month. And I was like, hey, when you get the chance, I want to talk to you. Or sorry, I didn't speak to him like 10 days. I was like, hey, when you get the chance, I want to talk to you because I wanted to... Firstly, I wanted him to come and like stream an op with us, just because we were new. We needed any attention we could get, and I wanted him to come to stream. And he hadn't spoken to me, and then didn't respond. And then eventually he responded to me and was like, yeah. What do you want to talk about? Like a month later. Little did I know, the 501st had asked him, hey, can you go record a conversation between you and Uller? I was like, oh, I didn't know this. So he came and he had the conversation with me. He's like, well, what do you want to talk to me about? I was like, oh, I wanted to talk to you about coming and streaming an op with us. We're talking in voice. And the last I had spoken to him, he said he was leaving 101st. Like, he literally left to go do it. So he was like, "Oh yeah, I'll come and stream." And he was like, "What else did you want to ask me about?" And I was like, "Oh," and I wasn't thinking at the time. I was doing like 4 or 5 other things because we're praying in unit. I got a lot of shit to do. Didn't think about it. I said, "Oh yeah, I'd be interested to see if you were interested in joining Rancor." That was my mistake. I didn't ask him, "Are you still in the 101st?" before I asked him, "Do you want to join Rancor?" And that is what has been categorized as the specific poaching incident for why we were banned. And it was my mistake. I should have thought of it. I wasn't thinking at the time, but I fucked up. I should have asked him that first, and I didn't. I had a bunch of shit going on, and I fucked up. So that was the specific reason why we were Gark banned. But read what you wrote. I was there, yeah. I was in the 212th when it happened, and soon after, but left soon after. But it was portrayed to them as the worst thing ever. Yeah, I mean, it got pretty not pretty to say the least when it happened. But thankfully, our recruitment was not at all reliant upon our relationship with Gark. All of our recruits are coming from outside. I will say though, it absolutely 110% hurt my streaming career though, because at the time when they issued the Gark ban, I had relatively good traction. I was getting like 10, 15, 20 viewers every single stream. And they ordered everyone in Gark to leave my personal stream Discord, the unit's Discord, I understood. They could not be in the TeamSpeak, they could not talk to me, they could not DM me, they could not anything. Yeah, it was, it fucked me over hard. Eventually they changed it. It was like, oh, you can go to the stream, you can go to streamer Discord, all that stuff. But it didn't matter. What was done was done. So, yeah. But yeah, that's what happened. Told that story like 1,000 times. And yeah, I really don't doubt that. Like, for a second. I know there was quite a large group, though, apparently, of people who were very strongly opposed to the ban from inside of Gark. So that might also be why they were like, pain of death, if you talk about it, we murder you. Yeah, I'm pleased. I don't necessarily see it as a situation of them trying to put us down. I recognize that it was my mistake, so it's my fault at the end of the day. Like, my mistake, own up to it, and such. But any advice for people who wanting to start streaming? I'm not very big, so I'm not exactly the person to ask. The ban was absolutely excessive. It was beyond excessive, but it was. I think that was probably just a mistake on their end with how hard they went. But in regards to Pitt, if you're asking for advice about streaming consistency, I am literally like today, the beginning of today, I've been 100% on top of the fact that I've been consistent with my schedule, but I need to expand what I do. I've been streaming just Arma 3 Star Wars content constantly. And my stream has actually been asking for me to stream other things because they enjoy watching me stream other things. And they enjoy the way I react to those other things, and I haven't been doing that. I have been neglecting my stream Discord, which I have. And I think that's actually primarily 12s because of what happened with Gark. I associate it with them, and I shouldn't be doing that because they like destroyed it in my eyes, kind of. Interacting with your audience is a big deal. And I was literally watching a video the other day about how to grow your community and how to grow your audience, and being engaged with them. And it doesn't matter how many fucking people are in your stream. Does not matter. You should be interacting like there's 1,000 people. You should be talking and speaking and enjoying yourself. Another big thing, like, because people are there for you. At the end of the day, they're there to hear what you have to say, or talk to you, or your personality, or wanting to maybe play with you, a little bit of stream interaction. So, and another big thing I can say is try your damnedest to not get discouraged by not getting a shitload of viewers constantly, because there was a point where I was getting a lot of viewers because I had just started streaming and I was in a popular position in the unit I was in. People wanted to see what I was doing. And I had a lot of attention, and then people, even like 1 or 2 days, there just weren't people there because it was like a Monday or a Tuesday where there aren't people just swimming around, just like, hey, what's going on? What are you doing? What are you doing? Like, that wasn't happening. And I wasn't getting any viewers, or getting little to none, and I got so discouraged by that. And you shouldn't. You have to just put your fucking face to the grindstone and just let that bitch keep going. Just keep streaming no matter what happens. Because, for instance, I've run into people who are only like getting 100 to 200 viewers a stream, but they're making their living now. And they're like, you just got to keep streaming. You just have to keep going. It took me 2-3 years before I picked up traction, from what they said. And I've been at this streaming wise for a little more than a year now. And I have my own community that has its own attention and tractors that help to bring people in with the unit that I run. So that does attract people naturally. But creating your own unique experience is something that's important to streaming. Something that makes you interesting to people, I guess, is the way to put it. I don't know if I found that for myself yet. But I like to think that people come and watch my stream. Like Butler has been here for like, how long has fucking, how long have you been here, Butler? You have the 12-month subscriber badge, but like, your fucking sub is for what? Let me see if I can find the resub here. I don't know, for Butler resub for 11 months. Yeah, Butler's at 12 months at the minimum. So I've been doing this for at least a year. I know some people have, like Kano has a sub from the beginning of my stream. But yeah. Streaming consistently is important. I've slowly upgraded my like hardware and things. I literally just got a new fucking computer. A monster of a computer, if I do say so. I need to buy more RAM, but I have 16 gigs, but I need more RAM. But yeah, that's some tips I would give on getting better at streaming. That answers your question. After Butler, why do you come to my stream? Let's ask that question. People who I see all the time are Butler, Kami, is obviously here. Torrent stopped by earlier today. Does it now? How long since April 5th, 2019? Oh yeah, there you go. You saw I played Warhammer 2. Would I be willing to do a co-op campaign? I mean, I have done multiple co-op campaigns. I would say the one problem I have with a lot of that is more often than not, when I'm playing like a co-op campaign, I'm not always in the mood to play Warhammer. I do quite enjoy Warhammer, like Total Warhammer 2, and I've gotten way more into it lately. I'm by no means amazing at the game, let's be real. But I still enjoy playing it and have fun with it, so yeah. I mean, I'm not opposed. I used to try to do stream games a lot and play with my viewers. I've gotten a lot more lax on that, and I probably need to get back into that as well. So I'd be open to it, to say the least. Where's my thing? That answer your question? Mr. Pitt. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear all of those things, but thank you. Thanks, baby. That was for you. Oh, let's not forget the amazing comedy between myself and my girlfriend. It's pretty top tier stuff. That's a bit of an oof, but... So, she will be around a lot more, Butler, especially since I got her that computer. Or at least, she got my old computer. She'll be around a lot more because of that, specifically. I'm curious about how, like, streaming with her would go, like, how our internet would handle that. So that's an interesting thought exercise, if you will. If you ever want to... Wait. If you ever want to, me, Sky, and Espamets play a lot, you're free to join us. Oh, are you CT Pit? Is that who I'm talking to right now? That would make a lot of sense. All things considered. Ah. Gotcha. Yeah, we play Warhammer. There's a couple of us who play Warhammer pretty consistently, to be honest with you. So I mean, you could always tag along with that as well. But I mean, if you guys play more consistently than we do, I mean, go for it, man. I'll be back for the app. All right, ops in like 15 minutes ish. Oh, see you then. I need to download this, I think. Longer ops? What do you mean? Elaborate. What you mean, dog? Ask is planning one actually relatively soon. I'm trying to fiddle with something here. I've noticed my Discord is still being highlighted by Streamlabs. There we go. Next up. Next weekend the 20th. How the fuck did you just show up? Like, motherfucker. I said your name once. Just zoom. We'll be at a protest? What are you protesting, if you don't mind me asking? Ah. I'm assuming they did this due to Corona? I don't know how that's gonna go, Chief, I'm gonna be honest with you. Because I'm assuming here, being a keyword, that the concept of why they did it specifically is so that way they fucking it's because of Corona. So for you guys to be playing football together in close proximity, the chances of you spreading it are continuing to go up. Well, they can't do anything. What can they do? Do you have a solution to the problem? Let me ask that. Or do you guys have some kind of solution? Or is it just we want our football back? I'm just trying to be constructive here. I'm not trying to be like against the grain. Devil's advocate, you know? I'm sure with like quarantine-based protocols in place in regards to like actually, for instance, like spacing yourselves out, you're doing conditioning and running and training and all that. I'm sure that will be a thing, but for instance, have you guys tried just asking that question, or are you just going straight to protest? I don't know if that still answers my question, though. Have you guys asked? Or are you just going to sit on your hands and do nothing, or now you want to go straight to protest? Okay. I'm assuming they were just like, we don't know. And that's how you've gotten from A to B. PS guys, I'll probably restart the stream when it's time for the app, just so that way they're separated stream wise. Make it a little easier to clip it later. It might be a situation of where your coaches are like, well, we're not even conditioning. We don't know when the next game is, so why bother conditioning? You know what I mean? Because I would get that. So I'm going to take a head call real quick as well. Okay, so your coaches are in favor of it. So is your coaches that are kind of leading this direction, or is it you guys have just made this decision on your own? Also, but if you guys have any questions that you want to ask me or whatever, feel free to ask them. I'm going to go take a head call real quick. I'll be right back. What up, Josh? I'm going to the bathroom. I'll be right back. And also, I haven't fucking seen you in a long ass time, Josh. Good to see your face. And I'm not back just yet, but stopping by, but also reading what you wrote there, Josh. Symbia, how you doing? I'm doing good, man. Little strapped for cash at the moment, which is making things difficult, but otherwise I'm okay. I just got back to work. I'm kind of waiting for my work stuff. I've still got like 2 more weeks, but still my work like actually pays me for what I do, just because like bi-weekly checks and stuff. So it's a bit tight at the moment, but I'm doing it. We're doing well in Star Sim. We're the third largest unit in all of Star Sim now, so yeah. Yeah. But maybe again. All right, I'm gonna take the opportunity really quickly to restart the stream. So I will be right back.